Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Wait, Are These Guys Friends? I am Mike, and I am here with Randy. And Randy, I hope you're ready for week 2 of Arnold Sly shenanigans. We're getting deep into the 1990s.
Oh boy. When
That
they both think I know, can you
you
tell how
can never
excited I am?
sound
So
less enthused than anytime I.
oh my God, Mike. How's that?
Okay, let's find the middle ground. Oh boy, sorry.
I for one am very excited. This is a fun decade of both of them. So and especially when there's some crossover appeal, like where we find out one was cast for the other before, or one had the people behind the movies had ideas for the other before, but the other turned it. There's some fun crossover here.
It's fascinating yet because I didn't realize how little they interacted in the 80s because of the way the rise of Arnold and Sly already being a star. But,
Hmm.
that's we'll get there. Let's start as we always do, how's your week been? Not what we watched. I was asking how your week was, and I wasn't going to do that. Then I remembered. How has your
Oh,
week been?
it has been pretty good. Mostly work related, so just a lot of keeping up with that, and actually diving in more surprisingly into what have we watched than usual. So I got into a sort of a flurry of watching a whole bunch of one show, and that's what's taken up a lot of what I've done.
Honestly, I'm really glad you said that because I was going to say I actually was out on a remote job this week. I don't really have a what we watched. I was hoping you had something, otherwise we're going to move right on to the main topic because we can get into what we watched because I ain't got dick.
So
I
it's
between work and editing the episode that came out last week, I was like, oh, I forgot to watch anything.
I did want to ask you specifically, and I'll get into what I watched here, but we could start with this. I had you had asked me about following up on some music, and I think we even talked about it on the last episode, right? Of
Yes,
the National, and you had on your travels, you were interested in trying to listen to some songs, and you partook in some of the National. What did you
I
think?
did. And actually, you know what? I actually have an even better follow up. I listened to more yesterday. I listened to that Rome album yesterday at time of recording. And here's the thing, I liked it, but it is not music I could listen to every day. It is so chill and
Gotcha.
of a specific vibe. It was very good, right? But it was that Rome album, which is a live album, really spoke to me in the sense that whenever a band starts a show, you feel like they're starting with like the one that's like they come out and it's like, it's like, let's get the opening to that live album is like a polite applause somber song. And I was like, oh, that sets the tone. That's what this show, that's who they are and what this is going to be. And I liked it. That the line I thought of yesterday, I'm glad we're talking about it because I didn't write it down, but it struck me, is this is a positive, what I'm going to say. I mean this in the best way.
Hmm.
This is music I would put on if I have a headache. Like if I'm at home and I have a headache and I need something that's not silence, I'll put this on and I'll enjoy it and I'll chill out, but I don't think I'm going to have it on when I'm cleaning or messing around the house or something like that.
Fair.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's funny you talk about that with that first song on that live album, and it's just they know their audience, so I think that's what it is. They do have a pretty passionate fan base, and so they understand that they don't need to come out with the quote unquote banger right off the. They kind of build to it, honestly. Like I've seen them. My wife turned me on to them, and we've seen them 7, 8 times, and it's the same kind of idea where it's not probably till the third or fourth song that's something that's a little more upbeat or something that gets it because you just kind of build into the groove, and that's cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So
I did.
it's
I did. I wanted to make sure you knew I wasn't, in what I was saying, it wasn't a slander. It was good. It's just, it's not. How often would
no.
you say you listen to them? Is it a mood strike thing like all things, or is it something that's in like your regular rotation?
So it's my wife will put it on at any time. So
Okay.
it just kind of
Okay.
depends if something's going on, she'll put it on around the house, and it's I don't think about it. But there is something to it. I think when you suggested and said, "Hey, can you give me a couple song titles?" and I started to rattle them off, I definitely went into like an hour straight of listening to stuff right then. So the mood
Love it.
struck me, and I was like, "Let's go."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would agree. It's not maybe every time, except there's certain songs that I can listen to over and over that I really, really like. And I don't know if it's just this. I like something. I'm very much a vibes guy or a kind of tone, like something needs a good beat or bump and groove for me to really get into it. I'm not always into experimental music and just being like, okay,
Right.
I don't know, you chanted for 9 minutes and
You're not
but
a Gregorian EDM fan with the
no,
techno disco beat, but the
with an opera breakdown or
is
something.
that
Yeah,
real,
right.
by
It's
the
a
way, or did I just invent Gregorian EDM?
maybe there's a niche, It's
Oh my God.
you
What if
found your calling.
I have to kill the thing I created? I hate it already.
It's
It's never trusted again.
please, no one pay attention to what Mike just said. But I'm surprised by the National sometimes because it does. If you just hear it on a couple songs, you can think that it's a more mundane kind of, I don't know, monotone type thing, and it really isn't. The music has a lot of depth to it, and what Matt's, I mean, maybe it's because of Matt's vocals because he has that deep baritone, and it can sort of almost have that lull you to sleep type thing. But then if you sort of listen and look up the lyrics, that's fun too because you realize, oh wow, he's really in depth describing this type of thing. I've had to at times Google what does this song mean, but then when you look at it, you go, oh wow, okay, like so there's a song called "This Is the Last Time" that was on Trouble May Find Me. I'm not sure if you listened to that one, but
If I
uh,
did,
yep,
I don't know it well enough now. It
sure.
was scattershot.
And
It
I
was
had looked up,
more
I'm like,
vibes than knowing what the song
what is
is.
this song about? And it's about trying to get over a sort of drug addiction or taking drugs more than you'd like to. And then when you go back and look through the lyrics kind of with that perspective, you're like, wow, okay, yeah, that actually hits every little beat, not only just lyrically, but from how he's delivering it. So, yeah.
Wow, a rock star taking drugs. I've never heard of that.
Weird, right?
That's
Like, I
yeah,
mean,
it's
pretty unique take, but
that's
it's
who I never I never saw it coming. So,
that's very odd. So, but I
um,
digress. So I'm glad you
the
got a chance to check them out. So it's fun. I like to spread their kind of music because, and if people don't like it, it's fine too. But I like to. I don't know how well known they are. I'm kind of surprised, given they've done commercially pretty well. And so when people don't know about it, I'm like, yes, give them a
so
shot just to see what you think.
two follow-ups on that. One, to your point, everything I was talking about, they do build to some faster paced songs deeper into the show.
Yeah,
Clearly, like you were saying, it's a live show where they know their crowd and they start with it's not slow all the time. They did
right.
build, it was good, but I was surprised by the take off the top. Like, oh, that's where we're starting. Um, and then the other thing is that it's funny you say is that's why the whole reason we started talking about music last week is that's why I do the periodic what's on the charts in different areas check, because something can seem big in one portion of the world or to one area and you'll completely miss it, right?
Yeah.
It's as we age, I think it's very important to not turn into that South Park episode where everything that comes out after a certain point sounds like Pip farting on a snare drum to combine references to different things. That it's even if you don't like something, try something. It's good to try to keep the open mind and see if maybe something hits.
You'll be surprised, I think, sometimes. I was one of the first to just kind of completely shit on anything trap, anything newer hip hop in the past for like 5 years, and then surprised myself when actually it was my nephew. So shout out Sawyer,
He's a
who
rapper.
no. But he just was very into a lot of different things, whether it was Tyler, the Creator. There's some other things that I didn't think I would listen to. And he's like, well, check this out. And that got me down a rabbit hole of going, oh, what's this? What's this? What's this? And so there are instances you'll be surprised if you listen to enough. Now you got to sometimes slog through some stuff that hurts, but you can generally, but then all right, I'm not going to listen to that artist, I guess. So by process of elimination, you can go, I gave it a shot. And then people can't accuse you of being like, oh, you've never listened to them, have you? You don't know. And it's like, well, tried it.
100%. Well said. Well said.
Um,
Anything else that you've actually watched, or
yes,
are we just following
yes.
up? Okay.
It's no, I at the end I've gotten deeper into, I know I had mentioned I got into Justified some more. I finished the first season, and it really starts to escalate for the last like 4 or 5 episodes of that. So I watched a whole bunch of them in a row because, and I think this isn't a coincidence. Walton Goggins becomes a much bigger part of the second part of the season, and it's like, well, that was
How
pretty easy. Like
long? How long's the first season? How many
13,
episodes?
I think they're all 13 episodes. So, and if you're watching them on I watch them on Disney Plus, which is Hulu technically or
Yeah.
whatever. But it was on FX originally. So you watch their 40-minute episodes because they were originally an hour when they aired, and I think Disney Plus does like hour and or minute and a half commercial breaks. So you watch a whole episode in like 50 minutes. So rip through a decent amount. But really good. I think there's 6 total seasons, so I just keep pushing through it. And one other shout out I want to have for that first season, there's a guy named MC Gainey, and if
Why
you
do
may
I
not
know
know
that?
that
That's the guy. He was on Lost. He was the
he was
bearded guy on
Tom
Lost.
Friendly and Lost, yeah,
Yeah,
where he
I know
was,
him from something else, but I know he was from Lost.
and so he plays kind of a backwoods drug crime kingpin in Kentucky, who is Walton Goggins' dad. So there's a little bit of a
Oh,
dynamic there too. And
what's the age difference there? I never thought. Time is such a construct. I still think of how he would look in 2004, and I have to remember it's
right.
not 2004. He's probably aged in that time.
Yeah, a decade later, right? So,
Yeah.
and they, I mean, I think of Walton Goggins obviously as Baby Billy or whatever. So, like, you think of, I think I automatically think of him as older as
Yeah.
than he is. So, but,
And he's
and this,
under all the makeup and Fallout, and he
well,
does a lot
Justified was
of,
what, 10 years ago? I mean, it's if not
Incidentally,
more.
there is a reasonable. It's a 23-year age difference.
Yeah,
That's reasonable to play your father.
sure.
So yeah.
But he's really good. I mean, a lot like in Lost as he was as Tom Friendly. He has this, affable nature, but then below the surface, you're like, this guy could fuck some shit up. Like there's a very simmering kind of, like, and he plays that same kind of character where he often seems to be kind of laughing and smiling, but right behind that is some danger. And it's really just great performance from him too. Fun to watch him as well, and just everybody else really good. I'm really thoroughly enjoying it now. It's anytime I have an hour to spare, I'm throwing on an episode.
Nice. How many seasons total for Justified?
6, it sounds like.
Oh, so that's a good little run. Also,
So
Googling MC Gainey, it didn't even click because he only has a mustache. He still has red hair, or maybe like a dark chestnut brown,
mhm.
and he's a lot skinnier. He's in Con Air. He's
Right. Yeah.
I didn't even recognize him. He's Swamp Thing in Con Air, the like long-haired hippie guy with the I did not recognize him at all from that.
Yeah.
He's just I've only pictured him a certain way for so long. Wow. All
And
right.
it's
Well, I should
but
watch
I
Con Air
mean
again sometime soon. That's a great movie.
but knowing even just knowing those two characters, the one from Lost and the one from Justified now, I'm just like, wow, this guy really leans into this. He's got it tight, but it's great casting, so it works really perfectly.
Funny you say that, because on his Wikipedia, in his personal life section, as I was just scrolling, figuring out what he's been and looking at other things, there is a quote from him on being typecast.
Oh.
With a face like this, there aren't a lot of lawyers or priest roles coming my way. I've got a face that was meant for a mugshot, and that's what I've been doing for the past 30 years. If I play a cop, it's a racist cop, or a trigger-happy cop, or a crooked cop. But by and large, I play cowboys, bikers, and convicts. So there you go.
Hey, man. Keep getting cast, though, MC. You do you, brother.
Find that niche, man. If you're getting that bad, get paid.
No doubt. So I was really into that. And then the one other thing, and I think I mentioned it to you as well, the crossover episode between Abbott Elementary and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was fantastic. It was I've been in and out on Abbott Elementary, and candidly probably It's Always Sunny, but if you know enough about both of them, you can get in, and even you don't have to know that much about it, but they do some great pairings in the episode.
Okay.
And I think I told you that the premise of the episode is the Always Sunny folks are doing community service, and so that's why they end up at the elementary. And they don't say that initially, and then of course it comes out that that's why they have to be there. So
Okay.
But the beats are really, really good because there's actually more similarities to the comedic styles of both of those shows than you would think. It's just that one is much more, vulgar and obscene and than the other, but there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek comedy that really is milked really, really well. The pairing off, I mean, you had mentioned to me, like, if it's a thing in Always Sunny that can Charlie actually read, and they play that up with the kindergarten teacher. I mean,
Adorable.
There's some really funny stuff. They pair Mac with the principal, who the principal is kind of like this street smart woman who is not always more like morally on the level.
Two
So it works
questions.
really well. Yeah.
I read a couple of reviews after.
Yeah.
A couple of reviews mentioned that Dennis is only in like the very beginning and the very
Yeah.
end. Is that, do you think, I read a review and I can't remember who it's from. I should credit their good thinking
Oh,
because I wouldn't have thought of this.
is that
It
an AP
was
Bio thing?
maybe, no. It was more, the review was mentioning that, do you think they couldn't include him because he is such a disgusting character that they couldn't figure out a way to actively include him in the show as a lecherous creep?
That would have made sense, right? Like
Yeah.
there is no.
And that's not confirmed. That was them speculating. And I thought, well, that's a
No, but like
reasonable
just thinking about
speculation.
Abbott Elementary, because that's part of it is its heart, right? The
Yeah.
show. I don't know if there's a spot they could have thrown him in other than eh, I mean, he could have probably done what Mac did with the principal. But yeah, I think they didn't like in order to stay true to the characters across the board. I don't think they could have explored that too much without getting into kind of creepy territory with Dennis, so I think that's probably why.
And this was, logistically, this was considered an episode of Abbott Elementary, not an episode of
Correct.
Always Sunny. Are they
Yep.
doing a crossover where they're going to
I
show
don't
up in Always
know.
Sunny at any point? So in that regard, that there was
That
no musical stings, no title card cuts. It was
no.
visually a presentation of Abbott Elementary.
The only thing is a couple verbal jokes, like kind
Okay.
of
Like they didn't hit
basing.
the piano music types like or
Nope.
anything like that. Okay.
Although, I mean, now that you're mentioning it, I mean, that would be kind of awesome to get a Always Sunny-ish version of the Abbott Elementary people come to Always Sunny and then kind of devolve into a lesser humans than the teachers that we know just because they're in that universe and they've succumbed to it. That'd be kind of funny.
They get caught up in their bullshit.
Hmm.
Let me see. I was looking to see if I'm not going to read all of these, but I did a quick Google to see if maybe there's something like that. But the first headline I found from Collider was just, after that Abbott Elementary crossover, I kind of feel sorry for Charlie Kelly. I was like, oh, but anyway, we'll move on from all that. I'm very intermittent on Always Sunny. Everything I've seen, I've enjoyed. There was a point where, like last year, I was like, I'm just going to start from the start and go. And I didn't realize there's like 19 seasons of Always Sunny now or something insane, like approaching like half the Simpsons-esque level. And I was like, respect on them and the fact that they still clearly enjoy doing it and that they, I just, my goodness. I felt intimidated and I couldn't continue on. So instead, I just kind of watched some highlights and I've enjoyed everything I've seen, but I felt intimidated to actually start watching the show.
I think the best thing about It's Always Sunny is that these are irredeemable people that are horrible, just horrible individuals, but they never get ahead. That's always the end. Like they always get theirs at the end of an episode. Like it always comes back that they never win. So you kind of are like, all right, these people are awful and are doing funny things that I don't really like, but they never win.
So that might be why I've enjoyed what I've seen too, because we've talked before about why I get so into like the Michael Schur type shows, is I tend to gravitate towards nice, good people doing, not that
Yeah.
obviously I can be a scumbag and enjoy scumbag things. I'm not fucking sitting here with my halo above my head, but I like overall Parks and Rec, a good place, even a Community, a vibe, not as Michael Schur, but a vibe where goodness tends to triumph in the end and that
Mm-hmm.
vibe tends to win out. So I tend to stay away from shows where it is ending with an overall negative tone. But the difference here is they don't get ahead with it. Sometimes those
Right.
people are shitheads and it's played for laughs and I did it again. It's like, oh,
They
it's nice to see the difference.
it doesn't change what they are either because they never learn either. So they
Yeah.
always they we just got to come back to it. And you're like, you guys are just a bunch of morons, but like you're always getting yours. I really think that if I know you've seen some of it and kind of watched clips and stuff like that, I think you'd really like Abbott Elementary then because it really feeds into that kind of same kind of heart. I know you don't like kids, but it's
Yeah.
and stuff.
I've
So,
heard nothing but good things and I
but they
am
are kind of
aware it's at my
ancillary.
bottom.
They're just part of it. They're not really the main focus of it, even though it's taking place in an elementary. But
Is it on? I assume it's on Hulu then,
yep,
because it's an ABC show,
ABC
right?
show. Yep.
Yeah. All right, maybe one of these days I'll give it a crack. I'll try. One of the next shows that I've promised somebody that I'd watch that they are convinced I'd love, and to be honest, they have given me 4 show recommendations over time, and 3 of them have become all-time favorites. The only one that didn't resonate was Schitt's Creek. We talked, and 4, I think the reasons that, even though they grow, I don't know, that show 3 seasons in, I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I gave up.
I'm with you.
People are like, no, keep going. I was like, no, 3 seasons is enough. If I don't like it now, I'm not going to like it. But they recommended Superstore, that I need to watch Superstore. And I was like, all right, one of these days I'll get around to it. They're insisting that I'll adore it and binge it.
I'm not in on Superstore, but I've heard similar things. I haven't watched much of it. I will say Abbott Elementary is, and I can't believe I never made this connection until now, but it's Parks and Rec in elementary. Like, it is the same kind of narrative structure where it's that mockumentary style, or documentary, I guess, style, where they have the side interviews with all the teachers and all the people in it. So but everyone is kind of involved. It's its own, it has that Simpsons Springfield-esque where, it takes on a life of its own with all the different characters within it. And
love that.
So anyway. It's a good one.
I will attempt to make either. I have to commit to a show soon because I never finished Penguin. I watched the first episode of Squid Games. I didn't go back to it. I got a little. I enjoyed it, but I got a little disheartened because I found out that 3rd season that's coming out this year, the reason it's coming out so quickly is apparently this season that we just got of 7 episodes is barely a real season. They split the season. It was one of those. So suddenly I don't feel invested to binge the next 6 episodes. I'm like, well, let me just wait until the end of this year and get the whole fucking
package. Not in any hurry,
package.
yeah, for sure.
If I'm not getting an actual season ending, it's a mid-season whatever, fuck it, I can wait. I got to actually commit to a show soon and finish the show. I never finished The Boys this year. I didn't like the season and I stopped. I'm with
you on that. I'm way behind on them, so I got to get back on that because that's one. Yeah. Now that I'm knee deep in Justified, though, we'll have to see. But
I need to get on a show. I think the last show I binged or even just finished because I enjoyed it so much was Fallout. And that was end of summer, I think. It's been a minute since I've really committed myself to a show. So, but with that, do you have anything else you want to hit before we get to our main topic?
No. On we go.
It's time for Sly vs. Arnold. The 90s, baby. So, as we entered the 90s, Sly is starting to fall off a little, but he won the decade. He won the 80s.
Yep.
Arnold is a rising star, like big time. He didn't put out a movie in 89, but he had Twins in 88, obviously Terminator 84. He's been building with hits. He hasn't lost money yet. I believe, I'd have to go back and check. I believe Sly lost money in 87 for the first time after all of this. I have to double check. It was either 87 or 88.
Rhinestone lost money, right?
Oh, yeah. What am I thinking? 84.
Yeah.
I harped on Rhinestone that whole episode, and I forgot it because he came back the next year and had the biggest year of the fucking decade and more money than anyone could ever deal with. But we're starting fresh. It's the 90s. We'll start with Sly. We'll give him his redemption. He's clearly going to start the 90s off on a high note. How could he not, Randy? How could he not? With Rocky V in 1990. Starting high. And I say this as a joke, but legitimately, when you look at his ups and downs of the 80s, he is, I think, trying to do what he did, where he bombed out hard in 83, 84. He'd done the Rocky Rambo combo in 82. He bombed out hard. Then he came back with Rocky Rambo in 85. Massive success. Then he's been on the decline again. Hey, let's start it hard. Rambo 5 in 90. You can probably see what he's trying. Rambo 5, Jesus. Rambo 5 came out in 2000, I believe, 18. It's a deeply terrible. We've talked about it last week. It's bad. Hey, there's a pattern. Both of these 5s are terrible.
There you go.
But Rambo 5 is real bad. It's
not
real
good.
Bad. So
it's the worst in the whole thing. If it wasn't for Creed, reviving the franchise,
Rocky
I think
Balboa
we would talk about
this. Rocky Balboa. Rocky
you're right.
6
Right.
That's a great movie. He got a supporting actor nomination from it. It led to the Creed franchise franchise.
You're right. I forgot about Rocky Balboa.
Rocky
You're right.
Balboa is a genuinely good movie. I
It's a
will
good movie.
stand
Yeah.
by and tell people to watch right now.
It's a
And
fun premise. It was just well
yes,
executed. Yep.
and thank God it exists, because that means we did get one more starring role as
Right.
Rocky that we could go out on. If
Because if
Creed
it was
hadn't
this,
happened,
ugh.
right? Creed could have redeemed it, and as a co-starring thing, it would have been lovely, and it was lovely. But I'm glad we got a real follow-up, and we got one more follow-up with Paulie also, because Paulie's still in Rocky Balboa, and he's passed
Right.
by the time
Yeah.
of the Creed
Because
movies.
he screws everything up in Rocky 5. So
Yeah, he's signed away. Let's talk about the foibles of the characters and then the foibles of the behind the scenes.
yeah.
Plot-wise, you can tell they're kind of intertwined. They want to take it back to the streets, right? They want it to be. We talked about how in Rocky 4, it had that big 80s sheeny coat. It was glossy. It was big. It was boisterous. It's as far away from the original Rocky as you could fucking get. They wanted to dial it back. So in this movie, they lose everything. Paulie signed some bad deals. The money got embezzled. Roky's probably got brain damage. And boy, did you do your research on how bad that could have been? We'll get there.
Yeah. No, I didn't. But
oh my God. Okay. Put a pin in that, because anyway, he shouldn't be fighting. So he's broke.
Yep.
They're moving back to the old apartment in Philly. And they literally apparently held on to it. The old apartment, like the one-bedroom apartment from the first Rocky. I guess for sentimental reasons, he held on to it this whole time because they're moving back in.
Yeah.
Mickey had willed the gym not to Rocky, but to his kid before Mickey died. So they have the gym to work on and start a business on. And Rocky starts training, and he finds a prospect, and he trains the prospect. And this turns into like Don King, essentially. And he becomes a fight promoter type, and he's trying to get Rocky back into the ring. But because Rocky can't fight, he tricks this guy into betraying Rocky, and it becomes like, who could he manage to do this or that? If it sounds like I'm losing the narrative as I try to get to the end of the movie, it's because they do too. There's no boxing match at the end of Rocky 5. I was trying to talk about how you're building to a boxing match, which is what the movie is building to. And then suddenly there's no boxing match. There's a street fight. Rocky knocks out the guy who betrays him, and the movie's over. It's bizarre. Like, my losing the narrative is because they lost the narrative. It's how do you end a Rocky movie without a boxing match? Randall, explain it to me without actual behind the scenes knowledge.
I will say my favorite part probably of this whole movie is when the kid beats up the bully. But
Protege's name is Tommy the Machine Gun. Tommy Gunn.
Both him and who's the other guy that got the vacant title, Union Kane, I think was his name.
Yes.
Those were both actual professional boxers. Him and Tommy Gunn were both real boxers in real life.
So Union Kane was supposed to fight Tommy Morrison. They were going to have a match that was the real Kane versus Gunn match to tie in, but Williams got hurt. It didn't happen. So that's would have been interesting. Also, that bout was supposed to happen a month after Rocky 5 came out. How much would people have cared a month after this bad movie? Which, by the way, this movie made bank, but not compared to all the other Rockies. In comparison, this one was, I believe it is the lowest grossing
budget, right?
Yes, because it had name value pre-internet. We talk about a million times. It took a long time for bad word of mouth to sink a movie. 42 with marketing, probably $1 million budget. Like that, we'll always go the high end, because when you see on the Wikipedia or Box Office Buys the numbers where there's a range and not a set amount. By the way, bombs often give a range because people start to get sketchy on the numbers. When a movie is a hit, you'll so often go to one of these sites and see the exact budget, the exact amount, how much. When a movie's a bomb, you'll be like, it was a $30 to $42 million budget. Let's worry, because one person's given one number and one person's given. But with a box office return of $120 million, yes, that makes money, but that is considerably lower compared to every other Rocky movie.
Yes.
So a few behind the scenes things. They do bring back Burgess Meredith for a flashback scene. I really do think, as I talked about for Rocky 3, they shouldn't have killed him. This movie could have benefited from Mickey being in this movie. Imagine down on his luck, poor Rocky having to figure out how to train, how to do something, how to live with Mickey by his side. Like, kid, I've been down, I've been up, we're down again. It could have really added something to the film. Instead, you get the dream sequence. Rock, you gotta rock, rock, rock. It's odd. It's not great. The brain damage. So this isn't just we wrote this and decided not to do it. They apparently shot scenes where Rocky's brain damage was way worse, to the point where he was like mentally disabled, apparently, to a certain point. Okay, so Sylvester Stallone originally planned to make the effects of Rocky's brain damage much more visible and painful to see, but altered these plans after watching a few days of footage because the sight of Rocky like that was, quote, like seeing your favorite dog with dysplasia. So,
Oh boy. Yeah.
I want to see those dailies. I need to see those dailies, and I doubt they're on a deleted scene. I don't think they exist anywhere. Important to note, too, in part of the recapturing the feel of the original, I think he'd done the others, but Bill Conti's back as composer. John G. Avildsen, who directed the original Rocky, was brought back to direct this one. And there's a really fun quote where apparently I didn't find as many moments of Sly butting up against crew or directors in the 90s as I did in the 80s. Probably maybe because the star was falling. But I did find a great one of this director butting up against his cinematographer for Rocky V. During shooting, John G. Avildsen told the cinematographer Stephen Poster that he was overlighting many scenes. He told Poster he wanted to light the film like Rocky, have it look like Rocky. To it, where James Crabb, his cinematographer, often used a single spotlight to light an entire scene, such as the opening boxing match. Poster told the director that the original film looked like a cheap documentary, to which Avildsen smiled and said, exactly. So, like, come on, it's fucking the original Rocky. This guy was trying to criticize the original. Like, what are you doing, guy?
It's yeah, you know, that movie that won Academy Awards. Yeah, what a piece of shit.
Two other pieces of trivia for this one before we move on. Apparently, Stallone also toyed with the idea of killing Rocky off at the end of this, where the original idea, it was only in the screenplay, this was not shot, was that he would be no, what do you got?
I can keep going, but I'll follow up. But
okay, it was that they'd have the fight, and with all the issues Rocky had, he'd get knocked out, he'd get knocked down, he'd be put in an ambulance, and he would die in the ambulance with Adrian holding his hand, and they would dissolve to a flashback of the famous scene from Rocky of him running up the steps with like heavenly music, and that would be the end of Rocky V.
Gonna fly now.
Thankfully abandoned this concept. Last note before your bit.
Yep.
This is the first time that Rocky's real name is said, Robert. Duke introduces him as Mr. Robert Rocky Balboa. It's the first time they've actually said his name is his Rocky wasn't written on a birth certificate, which I don't think anyone thought it was.
Well, I think they did that too to establish that Robert Jr. was actually Junior too. I think that was the other reason they did that. But no, I just had this vision when you said if in that script Rocky was supposed to die, I had a different vision of an alternate Creed, where after Creed wins for some reason, like he looks up from the boxing ring and like Empire Strikes Back, he sees Mickey. And
I like that too.
Ghost waving.
That's good. I thought you were gonna play Angels in the Outfield. It becomes Creed can't actually box. Like Adonis can't box. So the spirit of Rocky.
Weird. My right had like a whole bunch of power behind it. Yeah.
Not the spirit of it. No, the spirit of his father, Mickey.
Oh yeah,
Rocky,
all three of them. I didn't even think of Apollo. Yeah.
All of them come down and they're all around the ring and they're helping move his legs and his arms, and it's just Angels in the Outfield. And they're like, how can he move like that? How did he see it coming? It's like he's not going to, oh my God. Oh, Rocky in the Outfield.
Let's do it. All of a sudden you see from the opponent, and Michael B. Jordan's just like, I'm a wrecking machine. Like it's all.
He gets possessed. He gets possessed by Mickey, and he
Well,
talks like Mickey.
mm,
Oh,
I think we're
this
onto
makes
something.
sense.
Like,
He gets possessed by Mickey for the brain. He
yep,
gets moved by Apollo for the legs,
yep.
and he gets possessed by Rocky for the arms and the throw and the southpaws. That's Creed in the outfield. Is the let's fucking we got to get these people on board. We got 2 of the 3 still alive. We can de-age them or do something. Let's do one of those things where they start a franchise over. We are going to we'll end
Didn't
with Rocky Balboa. We're going to ignore Creed 1 through 3.
2 of the 3. I don't think.
Oh my God, you're right. He died this
Yeah.
year. He died this year. I feel terrible.
You just got Sly.
No. He was in so many things that I wasn't
know.
even thinking about it. I'm gutted. I forgot he died.
Yeah.
Oh, I made
We could probably
myself
find something.
Carl Weathers. No, I made myself sad. Did he die in 2024?
Late, right? I thought it was last
4.
year.
It was this past year, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When did he? I didn't click on him. I clicked on Apollo Creed. He died in February 2024. It's almost been a year. I forgot.
Yeah, man.
You're making a stew, baby. I just want Arrested Development on you.
Yeah, right.
But okay, so we're gonna need to get a lot of CGI involved for this idea.
Yes, but
we can do it.
Nevertheless.
Oh man, and what's good is that we won't need it for every scene because the scenes where it's Adonis boxing is just him in the ring. And you can do voiceover clips or AI voice. It'll be fine. Let's really gut the graves of these people and just completely resurrect this movie. By the way, you can't be...
Alec Guinness had been dead when they did it in Star Wars.
No, that wasn't Alec Guinness. That was the Peter Cushing that they did it. You're talking Rogue One, right? Yeah.
Right.
So...
I thought they updated the part where Luke sees all of them waving and updated that. CGI was, but
I didn't. They did, but with Anakin, and that's shit.
Oh, right.
Don't get me started. That's when they lost me. Those movies. Those movies lost me.
I forgot. He's very much alive. So
they made young Anakin wave to Luke. I just wanted Luke to be like, "Who the fuck is that? I've never seen that guy before in my life." And they're like, "Well, that's your dad." Was I supposed to know that? That's not. I saw him without the mask on one time.
Right.
I saw him without the mask on one time, and he did not look like that.
Right.
So who the fuck is that guy? And also, how
does he have an arm? What is this?
And also, Obi-Wan died and is old, and Anakin died as young. I've seen the quote. Don't fucking at me, everybody. I've seen the quote where Lucas tried to be like, "Well, you died at when you were your most like pure or best self." Fuck off. Anyway, back to the Rocky movies. So. Not even back to the Rocky movies. I will not move on. It can't be Creed in the outfield. We need a name for this.
Yeah.
What would you call this movie? Would you still call it Creed?
Above the Ring or something like
Above
that.
The Ring. Well, if you think of a title later, like if we're doing all these breakdowns and one just hits you, let me know because we got to move on. But this is $1 million idea. But that's all Sly does in 19. And listen. It made money. It was a franchise entry. In theory, it could have been a point for him for the year under better circumstances. However,
sorry, Sly.
What a fucking year for Arnold Schwarzenegger. 2 all-timers. Yep. 2. There's not a secret third movie that I'm missing in here because I'm harping on the first 2, am I? I do that a lot. But 2.
It would be easy with these 2. I would not fault you if there was one that slipped through, but there is just the 2.
I'm going to take a gamble and say that you like the movie that I'm going to mention second more. And we'll start with Total Recall, which I love. I love Total Recall. I love both of these, but I'm holding the second one under the assumption that that's your preferred of the 2. Am I guessing wrong?
It's not by much, though. This Total Recall is an excellent movie. So it's just I like stuff when stuff messes with you. I mean, Schwarzenegger even says it. It's a total mindfuck. But
and you just love women walking around with 3 boobs. You love this movie and you love mall rats. These 2 movies, your favorite movies of all time. Just 3 titted ladies everywhere.
Yes. Anyway, I don't know if it's just I've mentioned in the past that I am way more in on
3 titted women.
stuff that stuff that has I think I have trouble keeping up with the vast amount. Obviously, the galaxy is gigantic. So, but we bring in all these different worlds and planets and other things like that they do in both Star Wars and Star Trek. And this one has one kind of specific, right? Like, so that makes it easier for me to kind of stay tuned into it because I don't have to think about, oh, this sort of race or this sort of space, I don't know, alien. What's the word?
No, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Creed.
Yeah.
They
Creed.
have their Creed. Creed?
I thought you said
Not Creed.
Creed. Did you say
I
not Creed?
did. Did I say
Oh.
that incorrectly? Like, no,
No,
no, no,
yeah.
the movie.
I was just
Yeah.
going back to Creed. Did you think of a title?
No, no, I
Also, are
didn't.
there aliens in this movie now? Is it Creed fighting an alien being controlled by the
Ooh.
angels?
But the whole thing is actually Total Recall. Nice. We're
Oh,
in.
it's all in his
So,
mind. That's how we can get
yeah.
away with all of this.
Yep.
It's actually it takes place in
He gets
between
knocked.
two hits of the final
He
match of
gets
the
knocked
original
out.
Creed
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
Oof.
Why aren't we in Hollywood, Randall? Why don't we have Hollywood money to make these movies?
Let's get back to Total Recall, Mike. What do you got here?
I love this movie.
Yeah.
Directed by Paul Verhoeven, his follow-up to RoboCop. He made RoboCop, then he made this. What a fucking 1-2 punch, am I right?
Yeah.
It's just, I came also, the screenplay, I believe it was heavily altered. It was one of those, you're too weird, but we love what you did moments for Dan O'Bannon. Just
Yep.
like Alien, a lot of his other movies where he is such a good conceptual person, but they're like, we're going to need to take that gem of a thing, just take that away from you and do a little more with it. But still, there's a certain point in the 80s and 90s where you see his name on a screenplay and you think there's going to be something here. There's going to be the gem of something here. Based, of course, off the original novel by Philip K. Dick, which I believe, I don't want to speak out of turn, was that also, I know he did Scanner Darkly. No, never mind. I was thinking of something else. I was going to reference another movie that does not even relate to this. Let's move on. I was going to sound like an idiot. No, this is just fun, man. It's the right amount of insane science fiction for a casual person with intense 80s, 90s Arnold Schwarzenegger action. There is kind of a something for everyone here. And I realized that even with a lot of the movies he made that were more family friendly, and I have thoughts on that later about what constituted family friendly for Arnold Schwarzenegger, this is another one of those hard R movies he made where there's something for everyone. It's a hard R, but you're going to get so much out of this. This isn't pigeonholing anything from Arnold Schwarzenegger.
There are a few instances in the 80s where some of the movies he was in, and it's Arnold goes in and blows up some shit and beats the shit out of people. Like, that is the kind of the premise of the whole thing. It works here because he's not 100% sure if he's fighting a bad guy or he has an ally or something like that because of his memory altering. And I think that gives it a nice little added depth that makes you more interested in the story. For me anyway, that's why I was more like, okay, why is Arnold trying to do this? Well, it's because he's not sure exactly what's going on, which is a better storytelling to me than just, that's a bad guy, go kill him.
One thing that I want to note about Arnold that I want to say as a negative to Sly Stallone and a negative to The Rock, and we've talked about this before, people who have gone in this action genre, somehow, I don't know if it was him, if he had the right management, if he had the right people around him, Arnold was so good at finding creative people who could work within his limitations. None of these other action megastars, Vin Diesel, Stallone, The Rock, I know there's more I'm not thinking of, have ever been able to work to find ways to go outside their zone while staying within what they can do, as Schwarzenegger did. And this movie starts off the decade showing that off. Terminator is an example of it. The fact that people didn't want him for the first Terminator, and he's like, no, we could do this. And then the first time he really steps out of his comfort zone in the 80s is Twins. He did that Belushi comedy, but it was like that action buddy. Twins shows how much he's willing to try something. This shows it, and our next 2 or 3 movies kind of show it. I'm really fascinated by the ability to Arnold to pick a creative role and surround himself with creative people. That Sly, as you see the decade, never has that. Never has that. Even in his best moments, never has people going, you should try this. It's fascinating.
And I think this was part of the appeal to Arnold understanding that there was this curiosity that came about from kind of the general public to say, oh, Arnold's in that, but the trust had already been built up in terms of bankability that this is going to be a movie I want to see because Arnold's going to blow some shit up. But at the same time, then they go and they see that it's something else, or he's going to beat somebody up. And Twins had already established that, oh, I gave this a shot to see what he's going to be like in sort of a fish out of water, or something that is completely against cast that we thought for Arnold. And I really liked it. So now this science fiction movie that, he's this hero in this kind of dystopian, it's not dystopian, but, it's just outer space. Yeah.
You are 100% correct. And also, I love this movie because of Johnny Cab, played by Robert Picardo, who played the Doctor on Star Trek Voyager. I can't help myself. I can't help myself.
I did look and see the
genuinely
screenwriter,
a very
right?
good cast, though.
Right, the screenwriter that helped out, right, was the guy who wrote Big Trouble in Little China, right? So
I didn't catch that.
You can see some of that helps because it does have those. How did you put it with Dan O'Bannon?
Yeah, the guy who came in to clean up his mess, as people
very intense components to it, and I think Gary Goldman lightened it up a little bit in terms of
100% agreed. So, and this movie did very well. So I was looking for an estimated budget, and I think I found about $70 million budget, $261 million worldwide gross. He's doing just fine.
This was wasn't this? It was one of the most, if not the most expensive film at the time ever made.
Yeah,
okay.
And people were really just like, whenever you hear that, people start to get real pissy. And we're like, people I think start rooting for it to fail to see how much money they're going to lose.
It was well spent. It looks great.
Yeah. We talked in the 80s about like we've waited 40 years. I almost said 20 years. God, we've waited 40 years to do this podcast episode. We talked about Arnold falling out with Dino De Laurentiis, and he actually didn't think Arnold was suitable for this film, and they were starting to prep it, and he didn't want him involved. But hey, great news. His company went out of business. So as they were starting to prep this, they were starting to go out of it. They went out of business. And do you know who they originally had cast as the lead Quaid before they went out of business and Arnold came on board?
Sly?
No, Patrick Swayze. So could you have seen Patrick Swayze? Obviously, script changes come on board. Things start happening.
It's kind of like Roadhouse in space then, right? Like that's kind of the idea. I feel like it's more like that. I mean, it's not, but like that.
I got you.
I think they made the right choice. I don't think this movie is as good with Swayze.
No, agreed. But it's funny to look at. It was being developed for another person under another company. And it was only once the company that pissed Arnold off and he broke contact with went out of business where he went, yeah, okay, let's come on board for this iconic role because fuck that guy. I'm sure it wasn't as direct, but that's how it feels. By the way, do you know what finally put that guy kind of out of business and into bankruptcy? The original Dune and its failing.
Yeah, well.
So just I never liked that movie and I haven't bothered to see the new ones. Is that a hot take? I don't know what to tell you.
Would
I love Timothée Chalamet more had I taken the time to see him?
Would you want him in as Beast? No.
What if I do watch those and I come back? It was a revelation. You're right, Randy.
I saw the first one, I didn't see the second one, and was underwhelmed. But it also could just not be my cup of tea type of movie. But it's
we'll table that. We don't need to get into a Dune discussion. I was derailed to see. So, but yes, I do want to just mention the amazing performances from the rest of the cast. And this is what would lead you look at Paul Verhoeven went RoboCop, then he went Total Recall. His next movie was the smash Basic Instinct, and he cast Sharon Stone in that because of this. So everything leads into another. He really had a run in the late 80s, early 90s. He was doing amazing work. And he will continue to do good stuff. I'll stand by Starship Troopers right now. So moving on to the next Arnold film in 1990, though.
Mm-hmm.
Kindergarten Cop. What a fun movie. What a
Yeah.
great movie. And it hits both aspects of who Arnold was because I just ended him. Who Arnold is, because I love Twins, but Twins, he's playing the doof. He is the straight man in the
Yeah.
comedy, and he's great at it. Here he's playing what he had already become his like stereotypical role, his cliched role, even though we talk about it, it really wasn't. Like 2 movies in the 80s pigeonholed him as the Stallone type. He's
Yep.
playing a Stallone type to start this movie more than an Arnold type. But because he's an action hero, that's who he is, right? He's playing the big badass guy. I'm a cop. I'm angry. I'm not clean shaven. Everything's terrible. But then he has to become an undercover kindergarten teacher because the original plan, his partner gets sick and he has to go fill in. And it's delightful. I may not like a lot of kids in movies for various reasons, but this works. This
Yeah.
is a perfect execution of it. Maybe because they're playing off the salty angriness of Arnold Schwarzenegger in this film.
It's a great concept that this gigantic, larger than life. I might have brought this up in the Ivan Reitman discussion too,
I
but
believe so, yeah.
it's that you have this huge bodybuilder looking guy, and what will take him down? You know, he can take down planes. He can, you know, rip things in half with his bare hands. But a 5-year-old, he will just completely dismantle him. It's great.
And this, a couple of things. One, the plug for anyone finding us on YouTube or Spotify video. We do have a complete audio-only archives. We did an Ivan Reitman deep dive. We went through Ivan Reitman's entire director filmography and detailed what we thought about a lot of the films. So we have talked about Kindergarten Cop before. But that was the plug. I had to get that in. It's
There you go.
what we
Well
have
done.
to do. Thank you. This movie is another one that shows when we get to 1992 and even 91 in a minute, a couple of the disastrous films Stallone makes and a few of the disastrous choices Stallone makes, I think are all because of Twins and Kindergarten Cop. Because he saw the money Arnold was raking in, poking fun at his image, and he's like, I can do that too. The catch is he doesn't have the humility in these roles that Schwarzenegger brings to this. He is willing to be made fun of. He is willing to look like a fool. And I never get the impression that Stallone is ever willing to. He has that Vin Diesel thing where I don't think he's willing to look foolish.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Even when he's looking foolish in the comedies, there's an air about it. Arnold will look stupid and be okay looking stupid, and we're all the better for it.
Yeah, that's a great take.
So, why? Thank you. That's end of podcast. We're done. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, and I might be stepping on your trivia. Did you see who was initially approached for Kimball in this?
Literally what I was about to go to.
Yeah,
Please,
there you go.
Hit me.
No, it's just funny you just said Patrick Swayze because he was also approached for the role of Richard Kimball in this, and Bill Murray as well, which I think could have worked. But it's kind of I feel like it would delve too much into Venkman territory. I don't know. It's great.
It would have, but I also would have liked it because we got the watered down Ghostbusters too. I would have loved another hard R. Well, he wasn't hard R there. I would have loved a more adult Bill Murray at this era, like it's like sleazing it up and being that. I think the only difference is his cop pre-kindergarten change would have been less hard badass, more like sleazy PI type. You know, you would have had to have altered that. Did you see the one other casting that Ivan Reitman shot down?
Danny DeVito, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. So just come on.
From Twins, yeah, fascinating.
He would have had a great dichotomy with the short principal in this movie. They would have had real eye-to-eye conversations. It would have been great. And then according to this, unverified, but on Wikipedia, and if you can't trust Wikipedia, who can you trust? Elijah Wood apparently unsuccessfully auditioned for a role in this film, which is funny because as you recall, I think his first on-screen performance came the year before in Back to the Future 2. So they were probably auditioning, and his parents are, I don't get the impression he has a bad relationship with his parents. He wasn't Macaulay Culkin. His parents are really getting him out there in 89. Like, time to start working, Elijah. Get to it. So, but a fun movie. I don't have
Yeah,
anything else to say. It's just really
and
well done.
the audiences agreed with you. It's made a lot of
Yes,
money.
which if I didn't hit the box office, I don't think I did. A lower budget because it's one of those lower scale comedies at the time. $26 million budget, a massive $202 million worldwide
Yeah,
take. Just
yeah.
my goodness. Which leads you right into Arnold's 1991. And
So
whoo boy.
so
Was
we're
there
gonna
another?
say no. We're Arnold's wins 90, right?
I
We're
gotta give the point.
yeah.
It was so assumed in my mind that I didn't
But I
even
mean,
think
yeah.
to address it. Yes, we have to officially give the point. Yes. No, hang on. No, let's be fair. Randy, would you like to discuss Arnold getting the point?
No.
Or slide? No, Arnold, I fucked up. My misspeak lead to your misspeak. And sorry, Arnold gets the point for 1990. Obviously.
Box office wise, and the movies are by and large
Fantastic.
probably 1-to-1. I would still say, even if it was just one of those, Total Recall or Kindergarten Cop versus Rocky 5, I think it still wins. So
And it's
obviously
amazing.
both of them win. Yeah.
There's a year coming up that Sly's going to get a default point because we did the rules last week. I will reiterate the rules now as we move on. No cameos, no
Right.
TV shows. It has to be a credited film appearance for the year. If your competition doesn't make a movie, you get a default point. If neither one of you make a movie, you get no points. So, right now, leading the decade, we have got Arnold at 1990 with 1 point. That massive success, that point from us, really continues into 1991. He was really thinking about the point from us at 19,
This.
where he makes. Is this, before I look at the box office again, would you consider this his absolute biggest film on his resume, in his filmography? Is this the one that everyone's going to look to, talk about, think about? Because I think yes, not just because of the box office. Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
I mean, and it's on a very short list of the best sequel of all time.
I'll quickly hit the box office, which this one absolutely hit. I read all about it. This was the most expensive movie ever made. If you look at the high end of the budget estimates in 1991, it was $102 million. Everyone was like, what are we doing? Because you'll recall the first Terminator was made for $6 million.
Yeah.
So they're going nuts. Box office return, worldwide gross,
Unbelievable.
$521 million. It made $500 million in 1991. This movie was huge and well-deserved. We can go back and talk about why it made that money. Randy, talk to me about Terminator 2 and why this movie kicks ass.
Well, and this is money, as you want to talk money well spent. I mean, we talked about it with Total Recall. This is money well spent. This blew people's minds, the T-1000. Like that, no one understood what they were seeing. They were just like, how is this happening? And then on top of it, the story is great. The action is great. This is just an all-timer of a villain. Like, what a performance by him. Like, I can't. He ends up in a guest spot. I know you didn't watch Walking Dead, but in later seasons of Walking Dead, and then we watched, I'm getting slightly sidetracked, but Chris Hardwick used to do that Walking Dead discussion show after the Walking Dead, Talking Dead, and he had him on, and I think it was during the pandemic, so they did all Zoom ones, and he was just like, "Thank you so much for joining us. Can you just give us one?" And he did the thing for him. And he seems to really lean into it from all the interviews and stuff I've seen with him. Just seems like a great dude.
For a very good actor who has done a lot of good stuff, Robert Patrick, if you look at his resume and you really look into it, he has done some really good stuff. But the man is always going to be the T-1000. If anyone got typecast from the Terminator, it's not Arnold, it's Robert Patrick. People cannot see him and not think T-1000.
And he's perfect in it. I mean, there's so much that, and we've talked about in the past that, okay, maybe the reason that something is a bomb and nobody saw it coming is because people still went to see it, or wasn't as much of a bomb as we thought it was, right? Like some movies made money with a big budget, but then it really tails off. This, I think, is a bit of the opposite, where it not only got buzz because it was Terminator 2, so you had all the Terminator lead in. But then people saw it and they were like, holy shit, this is awesome. And then everybody continues to go see it, or people go to see it again and again and again because they're just so blown away by what they're seeing. I mean, I think just visually as a film, I can't gush enough. It's perfect. It's so good.
Were you 10 or 11 in 1990? Or am
When
I
did it
way
come
off on
out?
base there?
When
91?
did it come out? In July of 91. I was 10.
Okay. So I was 8. I was thinking that.
Mhm.
So I think about this hard R movie with intense violence, intense, like a bit of swearing. This is not a movie made for a child. However, that's part of why this movie became so big. I had a VHS copy of this.
Yep.
I watched this movie every day when it came out at one point. I know I didn't see it in the theater. I was 8. But you know what else
Yeah.
it had? It was that era where it had a toy line. Terminator 2
Yeah.
made so much money on toys. I had that giant, like 16-inch, like the 24-inch, 2-foot Arnold toy with the battle damage that could reveal like his guts coming out.
Yep.
And then I always wanted, did you ever see, it was the Holy Grail. I never knew anyone that had it. The Terminator gel, like, they show that one scene very briefly in the movie where they show like the Terminators being pressed and then released and like being made on the assembly line. Like, it's like blink and you miss it. They made a toy out of that where you could take like goop and it would form skin around a Terminator shell.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I always wanted it, but I never got it. And it looked so cool. But this is a hard R movie that became such a cultural icon because suddenly 8-year-olds wanted to see the Terminator toys and watch the Terminator movies and watch, how did that happen? How did that? This movie crossed over so hard, it became a kid's movie. It's massive. But, and it's because it's good. It's just good. Man, the scenes with the T-1000 murdering people with the knives are still tense and scary to this day. Just slunk right through the faces. It's just my God. When they go to the stepdad and they cut to the shot of him like with the milk carton and there's blood dripping out of the milk carton and he slumps down the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, that got me as a kid. That gets me a kid that gets me now.
I know we already talked about it just with Robert Patrick, but I love the commitment to that. I guess he did some sort of physical training while he was running to make sure that he only breathed through his nose so that when he was running, he would never appear to show fatigue while he was on. So like, to give that cyborg feeling, which is like, it's such a cool commitment. Like it's, again, we're just going to gush here for the whole time we're talking about this movie because it's so good.
It really is. It's a shame what happened with Edward Furlong. It's too bad. Although I do appreciate that the red-haired kid will go on, I believe, to be in Salute Your Shorts. So what a career.
Right.
Made it happen. Really, he was Budnick on Salute Your Shorts. Respect.
Camp Anawana. We hold you in our hearts.
Good. I love you.
Also, the voice of Montana Max on Tiny Toons, I believe.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. Look at you.
I only knew that because you brought up the Salute Your Shorts. I wasn't even thinking about the Terminator stuff, but
I had no idea. So, looking at some of the other casting, though, it's cast top to bottom. You bring back Linda Hamilton. There's a cut scene of Kyle Reese that you can find on the old Div to Divs, the DVDs and the bonus features. I'm glad it got cut. It didn't work. It was cool to see Michael Biehn back, and it would have been nice for him to be in the movie, especially after not coming back a year later for Alien 3. So come on back for sequels, but it just wouldn't have worked. They were trying to force it in. Things that maybe even became cheesy because they got hammered home. You think of Life is Like a Box of Chocolates for Forrest Gump. Hasta la vista, baby. You couldn't escape it in 1991 and 92.
Yeah.
You could not escape Hasta la vista, baby. Hoo boy. And then obviously just direction from Cameron, writing from Cameron. This is still peak Cameron. And is this the last thing he would do before? No, he would do True Lies and then Titanic, right? We'll get to True Lies.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Three-picture run.
The man doesn't lose money. The man hasn't lost money. I would love to talk more about the Cameron side of things another time. It's his evolution of career, more his later half, because
Hmm.
I hate what his career became. I
Yeah.
really do. Seeing what he was and what it was here, man. But is there anything else we need to say on Terminator other than he gets the point for 91? Sorry, we haven't even talked about
Yeah.
Sly. Fuck off, Sly. You know the deal here.
Well, and it's you. Did you have any other trivia? I just had fun, stupid trivia,
No,
but
please. Yeah, I wasn't sure. There's so much
the
I didn't know where to go with. Hit me with
for
your favorites.
the one that I had and before it is that the producer gave Arnold a jet for taking on this like a Gulfstream, like
My goodness.
plane worth like $15 million that for taking this role. I
That,
just that's so
that's
much
I
about
mean,
this.
I
And
mean
this I think this
that
also
that
was the
that
first.
$102 million budget suddenly make it a lot of fun, unless it was a personal gift. And also, they did a lot of fun things with twins in this movie. Both Linda Hamilton and the security guard, who the T-1000 does face-to-faces with, that's not split-screen effects. Linda Hamilton has an identical twin, and that security guard has an identical twin. So they
Oh
were
wow.
shot in the frame. None of that is fake. That's just two twins standing in the same scene together.
Oh,
So,
nice.
so if you're like, how did they make it look so real? There you go.
They had to cut some corners, with the budget. So that's it. So they found another way.
So, oh gosh. Pivoting over to 1991, Sly Stallone style, Oscar.
I'm gonna make me a comedy. It's gonna work.
This
Nope.
movie sucks. Have you actually watched this movie? This movie
So
sucks.
here's the thing about this. When I was looking through 1990s and I pulled it up, I was like, oh, I have some sort of weird, vivid memory of renting this movie. And there's one part where Tim Curry pops up and does like an overly dramatic, like "hello" or something like
Yes,
that. And I
he's the best
remember
part of this movie
I
in that
remember
scene.
laughing out loud at that as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, and so I was like, "Oh, this movie must have been really funny." And then I went and revisited a couple clips and reread the very convoluted plot, and was just like, "Ugh, no wonder nobody liked this movie."
Okay, so Randy, the comedian Harold Lloyd, and this is a little bit of a pivot, but I'm building to a point. 1920s screwball comedian. You've seen the famous image of like him hanging off the clock.
Yep.
It's more, I think, indelible than a lot of other things. People don't recognize the movies, but they know that from like the golden age of cinema.
Okay.
If you're watching the YouTube video or Spotify video version, or you feel like a Google, look up the poster for Oscar with Sly Stallone in 1991. Do a side by side. That's the vibe he wanted for this. He wanted a golden age of cinema screwball comedy. He wanted slapstick talking, hey guy, talking thing. He wanted that. And on its face, for who he is as an actor, I think that's a good idea because
Yeah.
he's doesn't have the range of as an actor. And I say that so funny. You look at the projects. Maybe he has more range than Arnold. I don't know how to get into it. But this, I think, is his attempt at trying to find a project that could work for what he can do. It is, however, a spectacular misfire. As you said, the plot is 9 times of convoluted, maybe
Yeah.
20 times of convoluted. So the first thing that got me as I was revisiting this that I'd forgotten, you look at the poster and it's Sly Stallone in with huge typeface Oscar.
Right.
It's important to note that it doesn't say Sly Stallone
Is not.
is Oscar. He is not Oscar. Everything about that poster, everything about the name of the movie, everything about it, he is not playing a man named Oscar.
Right.
Oscar is an unseen character until the literal last scene of the film. And he's not even everyone's talking about him all the time. It's like a 3-scene running gag through the movie.
Yeah.
Like the pin of the 3-scene running gag is Oscar shows up at the end and gets beaten up. Why would you call this movie Oscar? I don't understand it. It's the plot of the movie is he is a mob boss who promises his dying father that he's going to go straight, he's going to leave the business. However, he's also dealing with trying to get his daughters married, his main daughter giving him problems, played by a pre-My Cousin Vinny, Marissa Tomei. and she is giving it her all in this movie, is what I'll say politely. She is giving it her all.
Yeah.
This wasn't going to get her that Oscar. She's quite bad in this film. My goodness. This movie bombed, $35 million budget, $23.5
Yeah.
million box office. Pretty good cast. Marissa
Mhm.
Tomei, Vincent Spano, Tim Curry, Don Amici, Sylvester Stallone, William Atherton from Ghostbusters, Kirk
Is
Douglas
it?
cameoing as his father. William Atherton isn't William Atherton. Yeah, William Atherton from Die Hard and Ghostbusters in this.
Is Chaz in this too?
Chaz Palminteri. Yes, I
Yeah.
missed saying him for some reason. Linda Gray, who it sounds silly saying that as a draw. In 1990, she was coming off of Dallas. Big deal to have her in the movie.
Hmm.
Kurtwood Smith, coming off of RoboCop recently, going on to do other character work and that 70s show. The cast is good.
Yeah.
This movie is not. It is just all over the fucking place. I don't know what to say about it other than just, what are we doing? Let me look up. I have one more note on this.
Yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
while you're looking that up, yeah, I was trying to think of, is there, because in my head, right, I have, it's not obviously not Arsenic and Old Lace, but it felt like it was trying to be sort of in that sort of vein, right?
It wants to
Zany.
be a screwball comedy, a
Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
screwball comedy.
But with,
Yeah.
a gangster, but in a scenario where their normal gangster ways can't just solve what needs to be solved. But so they can, anyway. So like, what's a title that sort of could work within that? And I there's just so much going on. You can't have a title that speaks to all these different plot twists they try to
Call it
throw in there.
Snaps. His mafia nickname is
Yeah.
Snaps. Call it Snaps. If you want a one name, Snaps is him, is still bizarre enough and is one word but would make more sense. Call it Snaps. Sly Stallone in Snaps. Or Sly Stallone is Snaps. It flows better. It makes more sense.
Yeah.
Also, this is directed by John Landis, who has begun, unfortunately, his downward slide by this point.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting production note. John Landis, in his downward slide, directing this movie, invited another director friend of his to set, Jonathan Lynn, who directed My Cousin Vinny, and thought, I like that Marissa Tomei acting, which is staggering because she's really not good in this movie. And got her for My Cousin Vinny, and that really worked out well for her because she would eventually get Best Supporting Actress Oscar. The note I had while watching, I didn't watch this entire movie. I could have. I found this movie so exhausting to listen to after like 20 minutes that I skimmed around and I watched about scenes after that. I watched the Tim
That's all I
Curry
did.
scene.
I went on YouTube and watched a couple of scenes. I
was like, I don't remember this movie enough. I should watch it. I couldn't bear with the time I had available to my free time. Like, maybe I could have watched more for what we watched if I hadn't tried to watch more of Oscar. But it's exhausting to listen to. Tim Curry is great in his couple of scenes. Being Tim Curry, he's always charming. Chaz Palminteri and Sly Stallone are trying to do Abbott and Costello. They're trying to do Who's on First in a few scenes. And it's annoying as hell. It's exhausting and annoying. And that's the last thing I have. It's just bad.
This was really before he hit anything, because I think the first thing that he really hit with was Bullets Over Broadway.
Chaz Palminteri?
Yeah. So I think he was trying to find what he was doing before, obviously Bronx Tale, but
we're giving Arnold the point, a well-earned point.
Yes.
And as we pivot to 1992, I'll just lead off with, it's the movie we've hinted around, danced around, talked about, the deeply terrible, how could you get worse than Oscar? Don't worry, Sly's bringing Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. But hey, Randy, there's no way he gets a point in 1992 for fucking Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Height of his powers, Arnold Schwarzenegger, coming off Terminator 2. What's that? He didn't make a movie in 1992? Oh no, I'm checking my notes. He didn't make a movie. Randy, we have to give Sylvester Stallone a point for Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
I am only going to do this once. I am proposing a rule break.
No.
No one gets a point for 1992.
Randy, we made our bet and we have to lie in it. We have done a lot of actor battles.
We don't get one mulligan?
Not this time. We have done a lot of actor battles. This is a set format. We've enjoyed this format. The problem with this being the first time we've done this format in the video version of the show is as we encounter this movie being a default point for Sylvester Stallone in 1992, it's the first time you can see the heartbreak on our faces.
So
where we're so distraught at this terrible film.
So there was, when we did Chevy Chase and Bill Murray, go back and check the archives if you would
There
like
you
to. Whatever year in the 90s that Chevy Chase won unopposed for Memoirs of Invisible Man, which is a bad movie and is probably 10 times the movie that this movie is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing, this movie made money, right? That's the
No,
most incredible.
God, no.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. Stand by. I have the budget. I had to do a lot of investigating to find the budget on this one, but I took a couple of notes. Stand by, please.
70 million at the box office. It couldn't have been.
Hang on.
Okay.
Do stand by, won't you? I'm positive this movie bombed. I gotta find my notes. It was a $45 million budget. Worldwide gross of 70. 28 million domestic.
Oh,
it bombed
gotcha.
hard domestically. It picked it up worldwide. So it made money, but barely. And I will note
I would love to see that international breakdown.
Yes. There's going to be a lot of movies outside of a couple of action hits for Sly where he does make a profit, but a lot of the luster coming off of Sly and a lot of his image fading is he's barely making money. And it's almost always internationally. He dies domestically and lives internationally. Worldwide, he stays a draw for a lot of people. Domestically, he's withered and gone, is how you see a lot of this.
Begrudgingly, Mike, I accept this.
Yes, it did
Very
make
begrudgingly.
money, technically, but it's bad. It's real fucking bad.
Here's how you know how bad this movie is. You go to Wikipedia, it doesn't even finish the plot.
Oh, wow, you're right. I'm looking at that now.
Look at that.
On the way back home, somebody stopped it and just went, you know what?
Like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, it's basically, it's supposed to be an adorable comedy where Stell Getty from the Golden Girls, who I know had health issues, I think a few years after this, it kind of stopped her acting. This is, as Golden Girls is winding down, I think she'd do another year or two on Empty Nest where she continued the character of Sophia Petrillo. But this was her only real crack at film acting after Golden Girls. She had done some stuff and it's what a bummer because she is a very funny woman. And it's a real shame that this is what it was. Also, they lied to get her on board at all. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Didn't want to make you poor sweet woman. You signed on, who knows what it was named when it was presented to her, to be fair. But she only signed on to the movie Stop Her, My Mom Will Shoot under the promise that there were no guns in the film. And then there's literally like a scene where she's cleaning a gun.
The movie poster has her with the gun,
her
right?
holding a gun and smiling. But apparently she only signed on because she's like, I don't like guns. Is there going to be guns and violence? Like, no. Dialing back, it's supposed to be this adorable comedy where his frail mother comes to stay with him and he's your classic hard cop. And what a dichotomy you're going to have, butting up against each other. And it's a lot of scenes of the comedy is Sly does something as a cop, his mother does something as a mother, and he goes, Mom, no. It's hard-ass Sly acting like a 10-year-old is most of the comedy, but it's really bad. I have a couple of things I want to note on this. As you were looking everything up, did you find my favorite bit of trivia on this regarding Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone in this movie?
I'm guessing it's the troll job, but yes, go ahead.
Arnold, respect. They have a bit of a rivalry at this point. We've already talked about how Sly's trying to get that comedy bone, that bite on that Arnold had. Arnold just did Terminator 2. He's the biggest star in the world right now. Sly's star is fading. He's trying to ape this. Arnold put out, through his agents, a planted fake story that he wanted to do this movie. So Sly signed on and stole it from him.
Yep.
Arnold did it on purpose to fuck with Sly and
Yep,
make him
I
make
love
this
it.
terrible movie. And boy, did it work. And both of them laugh about it now. But, ooh, man, what a dick move out of Arnold. What a pro move out of Arnold. Because
Yeah.
Sly is just in the weeds on this one. It's terrible.
I think it did knock something loose, at least in his brain, because he comes back to play in '93 at least.
He
So
does. He does. And it's interesting, too, what's disappointing about this, and Oscar to a degree. His bombs, his swings, and his failures in the 80s, I wanted to talk about more. I was more fascinated with them and obsessed with them and intrigued by them. These are just bad movies. Those were bad movies, but I was like, how, why, this, that. These just suck. I don't have anything else to say. So, coming off the default point for 1992, we actually have kind of a competitive battle in 93 finally. This really brings it. Maybe it's not as competitive when we get to the end of the year, but on paper, this is going to be a big battle year. Fun thing about that, everything we're going to talk about, and we've talked about this with the Schwarzenegger movie in the past, everything dies on the vine overall because Jurassic Park comes out in 2023.
yeah,
Anything you think you would have done, any
yeah,
money you think you would have made, maybe cut it in half. Because
yeah.
Jurassic Park has taken your bank. It has taken it. That hurts some of these more than others, but let's look at 1993 for Sylvester Stallone. And we will start with, after 2 really bad years, he comes back and he has Cliffhanger, which
Yeah.
I realized I only remembered the opening scene of this movie, and I think that's the same for a lot of people. I
Mm.
remember John
No,
Lithgow
it's
being a really good bad guy. Is he
yep.
British? Is he
Yeah.
trying to be British? That's weird.
Ex British intelligence officer or something like that. He's got his own crew now. Yeah.
John Lithgow as a bad guy usually doesn't miss. He
It's
really
great.
commits. He's doing great, no matter what he does. I also realized that as much as I remembered the shocking opening scene where a girl falls to her death on his like climbing hiking team with Michael Rooker, who I didn't remember when I rewatched
Yeah.
this. I was like, oh fuck,
Hmm.
Michael Rooker with hair on the thing as they're trying to rescue the girl. I more clearly also remembered the Ace Ventura When Nature Calls parody, where the monkey falls to his death and Ace couldn't save the monkey in like a
Right.
shot for shot recreation.
Yeah.
This opening scene I was all over. The rest of the movie I didn't remember dick from.
Hmm.
So, but $70 million budget, $255 million gross. Slides back, baby. Back
Yep.
in a big way. Do you remember Cliffhanger? Do you have fond memories of Cliffhanger? Can you talk about Cliffhanger? I don't remember the plot without Wikipedia. What is this movie?
It's yeah, and honestly, there's less I remember about the plot than the visual. I just remember it being a excellent visual experience from watching the movie, just from all the different shots. I mean, it's they're mountain rangers, right? So they play into it. They're like, you know what, we have an opportunity to make this from a cinematography standpoint be the selling point, and it was, and it delivers. It's great to watch for that. I mean, it's just like it's a typical kind of bad guy, rogue bad guy that you're trying to stop, but you're doing it in the I guess, you get the intense nature of it by the fact of if you fall, you fall a long, long way to your death. And so that with that always being in play, that adds to the suspense.
And credit, I think, to that, taking what could have been a generic Stallone plot at this point. He has
Yeah.
his formula for action movies. He's going back to, by the way, this ties into what he had tried to do with Ram. I almost did it again, Rambo 5. This ties into what he tried to do with Rocky 5, what he had successfully done in the past. You make failures, go back to what works. And he comes out with 2 banger of action films in this year. But I also think this one, breaking out of his generic box, does get some credit to Rennie Harlin as director. And Rennie Harlin did his debut film as Nightmare on Elm Street 4. He did Die Hard 2. This was, I think, his first time to take a big budget action movie that wasn't, hey, guy, come make a franchise for us.
Right.
Here's a big budget action movie. We trust you now. Here's Sly Stallone. Make it happen. And they made it happen. It really showed that in this era, he had an eye for this type of movie.
I think there's not as much sense in going into the plot of this movie just because I think, again, like I said, the visuals, the appeal.
So the other movie in 1993, I love way more. I've watched this one recently
Oh,
because I can always watch this one.
yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
adored this film. I have mixed messages on how it was received at the time, though. Demolition Man. So I was confused because I'll always go higher into the budget. So let's go $77 million budget,
Okay.
$151 million worldwide gross, which means it wasn't a smash hit. It made
Yeah.
money, but it didn't do great. I have weird childhood memories of this movie. Maybe it's because it wasn't critically well received as much. I, for years, was thought this was just a bomb. Lost so much money, didn't do anything. Do you have memories of people like making fun of this movie or this movie being a bomb like I do? Where am I getting that from?
Well, I mean, cinematically, it's not, from a performance standpoint and stuff like that. It's a lot of it is pretty over the top. So,
That's
I
why I
think
love it.
no, I mean but yeah, but critically, you could see why people would say that one way or the other. Like
Yeah.
this was a movie that, I mean, I was 12 or 13 when this movie came out, and so then like whether it was sleepovers or whatever, going over to my friends' houses or whatever, this was a movie I remember watching a lot on VHS at like friends' houses and stuff like that. And we would just watch it over and over and just would get such a kick out of Simon Phoenix. But the other performances are really fun too, just like Sandra Bullock being completely straight laced. Who's the other guy who was on Law and Order also? The
Did
other
I
police
blanked out
officer.
because I was reading a trivia. Did you say Rob Schneider, the most important person in the cast? No,
No,
I'm
no,
kidding.
no, no,
I'm kidding.
not no, no.
Oh,
Who was
you.
Ben? No, what is
Benjamin
he?
Bratt.
Bratt. Thank you. Yeah, I
And
couldn't think
then
of his name.
also the
Yeah.
warden from Shawshank Redemption was a dick cop in this too.
This movie is fun. It's like this is okay. Here's my parallel. What better looking just because it's newer, but to me, this is the Running Man for this era.
Yeah.
Like it has that exact kind of vibe to me.
Also, you have Otho from Beetlejuice in it as the associate. He's great.
Yeah.
So, no, I
Nice.
absolutely agree. I'm devaluing what you're saying. No, it's
I
just something
have
of the
many.
cast.
What is it? What does he say when Simon Phoenix? He's like, I have many positive traits or something like that.
Yes, it's charming
Yeah.
and it's the right way of poking fun at his image, putting him as a man out of time, where he's not actually poking
Yeah.
fun. He just gets to act in a different environment and it works this time. So, thinking about what I had said about why did this work versus that and this and that and expectations, I just found, looking for something else, a quote from Roger Ebert addressing a lot of what we're talking about for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Film critic Roger Ebert was asked why this film was considered a success, but the Arnold movie we'll talk about, Last Action Hero, was considered a disappointment, despite similar budgets and box office grosses. Ebert concluded it was due to expectations, and that the film was seen as a comeback for Stallone, whose career had been flagging, whereas Schwarzenegger failed to live up to the previous record-breaking successes. Because remember, Last Action Hero is kind of the follow-up to Terminator 2. He took 92 off. So it's fascinating to think about that, and I agree with that.
This movie also did tongue in cheek a lot better than the movie we're about to talk about from Arnold, I think.
Yes, this movie did the poke fun at the genre types without making it a movie thing infinitely better.
Mm-hmm.
So, a couple of generic questions about the film for you. Important thing to note, not necessarily production notes or anything. Before I get to my most important question that I want to ask you, I do have one production note question. Had you heard about the deleted scenes with John Spartan Stallone's daughter that were in the movie? That existed. His daughter had lived to be old in the underground, where she was like living in the underground with Edgar Friendly, Dennis Leary. Did you realize that?
I didn't.
So the best part of that doesn't matter that it exists. They cut that whole subplot out. None of that happens. Part of it was because at test screenings, they were getting confused as to who was the daughter, and they thought Sandra Bullock was his daughter.
Oh, no.
And they reacted negatively to the scene where they were about to have sex because test audiences thought he was about to fuck his daughter. So they cut the whole subplot out. Apparently, also, there was a scene with Jesse Ventura where they fought, and that was cut too. That would have been great. However, my most important question, the question I feel like if we don't address it, people are like, how did you not bring this up? What are the three seashells and how are they used? Because I have a theory, and it's not pleasant.
I don't want to know the answer to either of those. So,
They're scoops. You
oh,
scoop.
yeah, all
There's
right.
3 seashells
Ugh.
of different sizes, and you take to your ass, and you scoop and clean your ass. The 3 seashells are scoops. You have like a Tostitos chip, which we didn't talk about, Taco Bell being the only fast food surviving into the future. So think about that. Maybe they sponsor the 3 seashells and the design. Because the 3 seashells, to me, you work like a scoop, and they're of different sizes. You have different poops, and you scoop your asshole clean with the 3 seashells.
For those of you on audio only, I am looking off to the side, dry heaving and smirking all at the same time.
That's not true, but for those of you in audio only, I did demonstrate how you would scoop, and that's true. So, what do you think the 3 seashells are? And I want to know.
I don't know. I will have Rob Schneider laugh at me because I don't know how to use them. I don't want to know. I would have done what Sly did. Go say a bunch of obscenities to get my own,
I thought that theory that I just laid out, I genuinely was convinced of it, had thought about it for years. It's been what 30 years since that movie? And for 25 years at least, I've been convinced that's how it had to be. Like, I kind of talked to myself like, what else could it be? About a year and a half ago, the writer of Demolition Man did actually address what the 3 seashells were. It's not as fun. No, it's pretty chill, actually. Instead of having toilet paper, you would sit down at the toilet, and it's 3 buttons. One is cold water, one is warm water, and one is air dry. So
okay.
it's like a bidet.
It's a bidet. Yeah.
And people weren't ready for the bidets in America in the 90s. It was comical, an idea to them. I, however, if you've not used a bidet, I have a bidet story from just this past week. This blows my mind. Okay.
All right.
Have you used a bidet, like installed in your toilet bidet? They're lovely. Do you have one?
I do not. I traveled to Japan a while ago, and their toilets are decades ahead of ours.
I have been wanting to get one. I keep saying I'm going to hook one up. It's the awkwardness of the sink hookup. My friend Andrea, Andrea, she traveled with you. She did camera. She has one in her home, and her sink is aligned so that she was able to get the hot and cold water into her bidet setup. Okay. If you ever go to Andrea's house, it's fantastic. Shit in Andrea's house. It's the best. Because it's an all-in-one system, and it's magnificent. I went to this hotel this past week, and I was in Miami. I was there for a job. I don't go to Miami to party. It's not my scene. And I get put up in a really nice hotel. I'm talking nicer. I couldn't afford it for myself. And I like the kind of hotel where when they told me the hotel hold for the credit card, I argued with them. Because I'm not paying for the hotel. I'm there for work. But I have to hold the room for whatever. You get the incidental hold on your own personal card. I argued. I refused. It's that nice of a hotel. I wouldn't do it. That's me setting the scene for this place. I go into the room, and it's breathtaking resort. I go into the bathroom, and it's got the deepest tub I've ever seen in my life. I go to where the toilet is, and this is what gets me. And I don't understand it. You have the toilet, and then sitting directly across from you, not to the side, not to the left or the right, directly across in front of you is the bidet. Are you telling me I'm supposed to take a shit, stand up, move over to the bidet, and clean my ass? Am I missing something? Because you can't shit in the bidet because there's no drain. It's like a sink drain. It would clog. You can't shit in it. What don't I understand about how rich people poop? Where there's a toilet. This is a genuine question. This isn't a bit. I want to understand, why do you shit in the toilet and you expect me to stand up without wiping and move over to the bidet?
I can't wait for the comments on this part.
Is that no? Like, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
This isn't a bit. I need insight. I'm asking you if you knew this, if you've seen it, if you've used one.
I have no clue. I'm not sure.
I was convinced. You've traveled so much for work. I was genuinely convinced just now you would have like a real answer to the protocol for me. And I'm
No, most of the
disheartened you
places,
don't have one.
yeah. I think the only few times I went to a couple of those places, it was the same setup. I recall one place, but where it was the same setup, and I just didn't use it because I didn't know the protocol either. So I'm in the
So
same boat.
I did a
I'm
quick,
not I'm not as passionate about it as you are, but
it doesn't make sense to me. And also, I did a quick Google just now, and I did wikihow.com, use a bidet.
all
I
right.
just did this in the moment. And this makes so much more sense. Instead of it being toilet, 2.5 to 3 foot gap dead ahead of you, staring like it's like a
Wait,
cuck chair. You'd be staring eye to eye with someone sitting on the bidet.
oh my God.
The WikiHow has the bidet next. So you'd be sitting on it, slide, use the
Yeah.
bidet. That makes sense. So I now blame this rich hotel who probably thought it was fancy and don't know what they're doing. They're fake posh. They're fake rich. And that just makes me more angry at them.
What movie did Arnold Schwarzenegger make in 1993, Mike?
Hang on. How dare you devalue the fact that not only did
I am not devaluing this. I'm ready to move on.
we found out what the three seashells were, and I went on a journey that you did not support me on one step of the way.
That's factual. Yes.
I thought you would be there and be ready to. I genuinely thought you would be ready to have as
I
much
do
of a
not share
discussion
your
about
bidet
this as I
rage.
was. It's not rage, it's curiosity. It wasn't rage, it was I have a curious mind and I'm fascinated by it.
Your passionate curiosity.
Passion.
We'll call it that.
Passionate curiosity, and I'm disheartened that you didn't share in it because I thought you would be as curious or weird about it as I was.
I'm sorry to break your heart. But...
Wait, are these guys friends? No.
Nope.
Because he doesn't feel the same way about bidets as I do.
Mike hates A Christmas Story. Randy not interested in bidets. On we go.
Do you have 94 handy? Because I just get us to 1994, please.
We have to talk about Last Action Hero.
Oh, God, you're right. We briefly mentioned it. Last Action Hero.
I think we sort of mentioned it already that why it doesn't really work as much because it's trying too hard. I think honestly that's the problem with this movie. It was fine, but it's trying too hard to be meta and
I actually like Last Action Hero. I do enjoy it.
it's not
I
a
would
bad
watch
movie.
it.
Yeah,
It's
it just tries
fine.
too hard.
I don't remember why, because we've joked about it before. There was a point where we had actually talked about why it could have failed for Jurassic Park. Now, whenever you talk about 1993 summer movies, you inevitably talk about Jurassic Park. So that's it's because we were talking about Jurassic Park. We did a Jurassic Park episode. It all comes
That's
together.
right.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Hey, go to the archives. Third archive.
I'm going to cut you off very briefly, and just to put this into perspective, and it wasn't just necessarily this summer, but I'm going to rip off really quickly the top box office movies from 1993. This is the most insane movie year I think that exists.
Please.
Like, just this is domestic theater, right? So Jurassic Park, The Fugitive, The Firm, Sleepless in Seattle, Mrs. Doubtfire, Indecent Proposal, In the Line of Fire, Aladdin, Cliffhanger, which we talked about, and A Few Good Men. That's the top 10, and that's in 1 year. And you can keep it's crazy. You can keep going. It's like Free Willy, Groundhog Day, Dave, Son of a Woman's in there, The Crying Game.
Cool Runnings.
Like,
You skipped Cool Runnings.
I was trying, jumping around. But, I mean, it's crazy. Like, that is...
What a year.
That would be great for, like, a 3-year run. Like, it's... Anyway.
By the way,
the context is mind-boggling.
If you go strictly box office,
yeah,
Cliffhanger was 9, Demolition Man was 18, Last Action Hero was 23rd.
Yep.
That said, I love Dave. Schwarzenegger does have a cameo in Dave, and that came in 13. But we don't count cameos.
You don't count that, yeah.
But I do love that movie. We've talked about it before. Another Ivan Reitman movie.
Ivan Reitman, yeah.
Delightful. It's nice to see him continuing to hang out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's dial in on, we already said why it doesn't work in comparison to a movie that does it better. How does it miss the mark, and why does it miss the mark in these tongue-in-cheek movies, or these tongue-in-cheek moments? What is it doing wrong compared to Demolition Man? Why don't these hit the same way?
I think because it's not as subtle. And I get it's tough because that's the premise, but I don't know. I feel like you get the point of Arnold finds out it hurts to punch through a window, right? Or the car window, right? Or, but I feel like then there's like 4 other instances of that. It's like, we get it. Like, he's an action hero that is not real, in the real world. And I don't know, maybe that premise is thinner. I think that the satirical stuff in Demolition Man works really well because it's not necessarily tied to the plot. They're in the future or something is there and he's a guy out of time, but it's little points that are details as opposed to centralized to the plot, which it's centralized to the plot in Last Action Hero.
You did remind me of 2 trivia bits, one for each movie.
Mm-hmm.
In Demolition Man, it was joked that they changed the Constitution and Arnold Schwarzenegger has been elected president.
Right.
And you will note that 10 years to the day that Demolition Man came out is when he was elected governor of California. So people are like, oh. And then in Last Action Hero, when they go to the video rental store of the movie universe where Schwarzenegger doesn't exist, Stallone is in Terminator 2, and they have a fake cardboard standout of Stallone
I forgot
in Terminator
about that,
2.
yeah.
Yes.
That's good. All right, so that's a good instance of it, but
it's a subtle joke. It's visual humor. They don't talk about it. They don't harp on it. With that, I actually think Stallone, in my opinion, as much as I do enjoy Last Action Hero. Stallone gets an truly earned point for 1993.
Sure.
So we are at 2-2. We're in the 90s. 90, 91 for Arnold, 92 begrudgingly, and 93 for Stallone.
Yes, very begrudgingly.
As we hit 1994, great news, Randy. We've already talked about one of these movies at length before in the Ivan Reitman deep dive, because as we've said, he often works with Arnold. We've already talked about the movie Junior. And, to sum up Junior, let me play a little something for you. All right, back to Ivan Reitman. But 1994, he reunites Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito to make the movie Junior. This could be part of the issue. We have an early cut of the movie ended with an abortion scene that was nixed by the studio after the subject was deemed too politically sensitive. Extensive reshoots were required to make the final movie work.
Good
so
Lord.
I'm going to take
right now. I can't imagine almost 30 years ago.
So you talk about the movie having a total mismatch and the funny thing and the ending and the, how this works and how that works. My thing, do you think Arnold was going to lose the baby? Was Arnold going to lose the baby? And that was going to be the end of the movie. Oh my God, it's not going to work. Get this baby out of me. You're fine with that, right?
Yeah, let's get this. You were curious what's going to get cited on news sites.
What are you talking about?
Yes,
No one
it
was
was
talking
Arnold.
about
It wasn't like...
We're simply talking about the funny abortion comedy Junior that I made. Do you remember when I made that comedy about the abortions? Honestly, what else do we need to say? It's a terrible movie. It's a deeply terrible movie. We've talked about it at length. I know that clip maybe makes you uncomfortable, and I also put it in our best of for last year. So
Yes.
Even if no one else is ever going to laugh at that movie, or that movie also,
Yeah,
clip, that's for me. I will keep bringing that back if this movie comes up. Enjoy. That's all we have to say other than budget of $60 million, box office of 108.4, because it does reunite him with Danny DeVito from Twins. So it made money. Not a lot, but it made money. What's your bit?
I'm completely rehashing what we did before, but you asked me to describe this movie, and I said Arnold gets pregnant, and you were like, hilarity ensues, and I said, no, hilarity attempts. And so just that callback, I'm going to say that again. Like
I forgot about that line.
I think that is the truth. Like it just, it tries to be funny and it's not. So
that is 100% true. And one of the things I had said at that point, because the next couple of years, there is a little bit of a decline in Arnold, and I tried to take this. I remember this going as, well, this is the start of Arnold's decline. And you went, whoa, 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 whoa. What about True Lies? And I went, oh, shit. Because, True Lies also came out this year.
Yes.
And True Lies fucking slaps, as the kids say.
What a
the kids
movie,
still say that? I don't know if they do. And if they do say it, they stop because I just said
a rollicking good time. I mean, it is from the word go.
And that one did real well. Reuniting, of course, Arnold and James Cameron, and $120 million budget, $379 million box office. This is the follow-up to Terminator 2 they wanted Last Action Hero to be. This is the follow-up. This is them coming back, also obviously with Cameron again. But them coming back and going, no, 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 you doubted us? You doubted me? Hold my drink. We fucking got this.
This is one of Arnold's, I think, better comprehensive performances that I've seen. Like where he's funny, he's like there is parts where he's I don't want to say fish out of water, but there's things he showcases a little bit of a range of things, and he's still the badass action hero. Like there's a lot of good stuff from him in this, and just makes the movie. It is just super fun to watch. I mean, it's really really a good time.
Also, amazing cast top to bottom. Jamie Lee
Yep.
Curtis, absolutely fantastic. Bill Paxton, in I guess an extended cameo, amazing. Charlton Heston shows up. Liz Dushku is the daughter. Tia Carrere, Carrere, I always
Career,
forget.
I think. Yeah.
Carrere. Coming off of Wayne's World,
Yep.
capitalizing it, and really, I
Yeah.
think the only other real moment capitalizing on Wayne's World it should have. I don't think
Oh,
it should
yeah, I mean,
capitalize after this.
Great action scenes between her and Jamie Lee. I mean, there's really fun stuff in there.
And very good sexual tension between Arnold as well. Everything works. And then I have to mention it. This is the best thing Tom Arnold has ever done.
He's pretty good in this movie.
He's great in this movie. He's fun in this movie. He's well used in this movie. If he had simply stayed, I don't know, in this lane, what this is to me is I've made this joke about things before for people. This is the McBain's sidekick role that Troy McClure gets offered on The Simpsons. Except instead of tearing it down to make a ridiculous, terrible movie, he took it and it worked out for him. You know?
If Tom Arnold had taken a better approach to how he accepted things and looked to do things, I think he could have been a similar arc to what Patton Oswalt did. Like I think there are similar type roles that he could find himself. And I think Patton Oswalt is better, but
I think
a
million times better. But also of the era, you got to look at least a decade apart.
But
here.
I think that he could fall into some of those things, you know, not as maybe diverse as the things that Patton Oswalt is capable of doing, just because of his ability to perform. But I think, oh, there's the dog.
Oh, hi. Normally it's Hermione the cat that pops into
it's usually
frame
the cat,
for the
but
video people.
Leia is making an appearance. Hello, Leia.
I always say for the audio people, you are missing out on pets, if nothing else. You see
we have a veritable zoo in our house, but
yeah.
So maybe that's too much of a hot take, and maybe Patton will slap back at me on social media. I don't.
but I get what you're
Rightfully
saying.
So.
You're not looking at what Patton Oswalt did in 2004 versus what Tom Arnold did in 2004.
No,
you're talking
no.
about what Tom Arnold did in 1994 versus what Patton Oswalt is doing 2004 and beyond type thing.
I think the choices, the choices that Patton Oswalt is making, if Tom Arnold was able to be steered into some of those type of choices in that decade, I think he would perform well in them.
You can tell, that's the way to say it. Because you get this in 94. He has a good co-starring role in the Hugh Grant movie 9 Months in 95, which I think we talked about because Robin Williams is also in that as a co-star, and that's a fine little romantic comedy. The catch is, in 96, when he breaks out to make his own movies, you have Big Bully, Carpool, The Stupids, and McHale's Navy. Those are awful. 4 in a row, just fucking awful.
Yeah.
And then he cameos in Austin Powers, the first one, which is fine, as the guy in the
When was his show? Was that around the same time?
Oh, gosh. I forgot he even had a show.
Yeah. Which was only really because he was married to Roseanne.
The Jackie Thomas show, that was before. He had 2 shows. He had the Jackie Thomas show where he played, I don't even remember what it was, but that was while he was married to Roseanne. That was the year before True Lies. Then after True Lies. Oh, was that
early? Okay, I didn't realize
Then
that.
after True Lies, he had he did all the Roseanne stuff before True Lies. He was in Nightmare on Elm Street 6, cameoing with Roseanne in 1990. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was all before this. This is him just making it work. And he does make it work because True Lies, again, kicks ass. Top to bottom. Fun action movie, great comedy, great performances. It hits multiple genres. It makes all of those multiple genres work. And it made a fuck ton of money. So that's all lovely. Then we pivot over, unless you have anything else you want to say for Arnold's 1994. That's a very strong 1994.
Yeah, didn't love Junior, but it did fine, and it's, it didn't lose money.
Exactly.
I guess,
Junior's terrible, but it didn't lose money. And then if you were to come up against the movie that Stallone did in 1994,
no,
it's a tough call, right? If you were to say it was a Junior versus The Specialist battle in 1994, that becomes a discussion, actually, right? Because they both made money, but they're both bad. True Lies, however, is probably going to give Schwarzenegger the point. But let's talk about The Specialist, because Stallone did come to play. Coming off the back of Cliffhanger and Demolition Man, $44 million budget, $170 million gross. It made a good amount of money.
yeah.
And also, I didn't know The Specialist. Turn the Beat Around from Gloria Estefan came from this movie. I thought that was, yes, I thought that was an 80s song. No, it came from 1994. Turn the beat around. Something, something, passion. Is it? I thought it was passion. Got to hear percussion? Or what's the lyric?
No, but that's one of the lines, yeah.
What
It's
the hell's
turn
the
the beat around.
Yeah.
Got to feel that passion. Turn it upside down. Love to hear percussion, I believe.
Oh, okay. I thought,
Check me on the
hey,
lyrics,
you know what?
yeah.
No, let's do it right now. Turn the beat around lyrics. And I will read them as robotically as possible because we are going to be scientific about this.
I love to hear percussion.
We're going to do this.
Watch me be wrong, and it's just been something I've misheard for 20 years.
No, you are right. And you are half right. You are right in that it's percussion. There's no passion mentioned ever. I made that up.
What's the first part?
Percussion twice.
Got to feel percussion?
No, it's hear percussion twice. Here's the first two verses.
Huh.
It's scientific. Hang on. Science. Scientific. We're going to analyze these lyrics. We're going to talk about them directly. Turn the beat around. Love to hear the percussion. Turn it upside down. Love to hear the percussion. Love to hear it. There's a lot of audio signals going on here. If you analyze it, reverberating within, there's nothing about the passion. This is strict science.
Yeah.
This is strict audio. There's nothing about how you feel. Well, there's love to hear it, but you're hearing it. By the way, The Specialist is another one of his kind of generic movies is the problem. It's I'm trying to think how to say it. It probably made bank because he had a great 93. And Sharon Stone is pretty big at this point because she did Basic Instinct in 92. I didn't look up her IMDb. Did she do anything between Basic Instinct and this? Or is this her follow-up? And that would probably do a lot.
I didn't look either, but...
Well, let's look it up right now. Sharon Stone IMDb. We have the internet.
Some sliver, so she fully leaned into the
I'm going to open my legs sex thing. And that sounds more rude than I meant. Just that was the famous bit.
I mean, yeah.
The famous bit.
Well, no, but I mean, Sliver was notoriously a pretty, like,
I was talking about her lady parts
movie,
when
right?
I said
like,
famous
wasn't...
bits.
No, like, oh, gosh.
Okay, good. Thank you. I will be fully honest. I didn't watch this movie, and I haven't watched this movie. This is the first one in the 80s and 90s, except maybe one. I think I forgot about one in the last one. I've tried to make an effort to make sure I've seen and am aware of all of these films. This one escaped. I haven't seen The Specialist. I can't talk about it. That said, as a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes from 30 different critics, it got a lot of Golden Raspberry Award nominations. Sharon Stone won. I'm not under the impression I'm missing anything. Also, no, we talked about it. It did make me, so I don't know what to say. Any thoughts on The Specialist? Have you actually seen this movie?
A long time ago. It's not anything I remember. So the only things I saw from this is just that there's a decent amount of director options that went away. Mario Van Peebles was attached to direct it. He decided not to do it. It looks like they were interested in Fincher, but because of Alien 3, they decided not to, which is a bad miss.
I like how they were blaming him for Alien 3. Right. Fuck off.
And then the Hughes brothers were also here on this. I don't know if Menace to Society is probably... it was before this. So, like, but they turned it down. So you had... I mean, that should probably speak to this movie, that what it ended up being, and it's not that surprising. So they Steven Seagal was supposed to star in this movie. And he was offered to star and direct it. Oh God, I just read.
I mean, I haven't seen it. Maybe it's an improvement. I don't know.
He wanted $9 million in the studio. Didn't want to pay him that much, so they got Sly. So I don't know how much they paid Sly, but
I think Sly was famously making $20 million at this point.
Oh, okay. So maybe they were like, you're not. Maybe they were like, yeah, it says
we're not giving Steven Seagal $9 million, but we'll give Sly $20 million. And as silly as it sounds,
which is fair. That's
yeah, that's accurate actually. It was looking at box office. We already gave the numbers, but it was Stallone's third highest grossing movie of the 90s.
Yeah,
so
it made a lot of money. So it's still, I mean, it playing off of its two leads. You know, it's that's enough cachet to bring people out.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
But not enough to unseat
True Lies. So here's my question, and this obviously Stallone doesn't get a point. I was fucked up. Obviously, Schwarzenegger gets a point because of True Lies. I just want a hypothetical. Both movies made money, and I think I know the easy answer, but I haven't seen this. If you put this movie up against Junior, who gets the point?
I think this, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Stallone gets it for that. It's close, but that's more my dislike of Junior than anything else.
I think it's everybody's just like a Junior probably, but I haven't seen this, so I was curious. But obviously, True Lies is fucking True Lies.
I think this just feels like sort of cookie cutter spy hitman, you know, thriller. A typical kind of action piece. So it's,
as we keep harping on, a generic Sylvester Stallone,
inoffensive or whatever you want to call it. Like there's nothing overly. Whereas Junior was something that swung for the fences and missed badly. So,
all right. So moving on to 1995.
Yep.
What a banner year. Not really, because I'm disappointed to say, unless I'm missing something. Sly's going to get another default point, and he's going to get another default point for two kind of shit movies.
Yeah.
One of them is better than the other, but one's real bad.
Yeah.
That said, both of these movies made money worldwide. Both of them failed domestically. That's the pattern. But somehow, Sly is still holding on at the worldwide box office as a draw. Or maybe it's just that there's so many places it's releasing, it can't help.
Judge Dredd brought back, you know, the reunion that nobody wanted, him and Rob Schneider.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's start with Judge Dredd. Such a maligned movie that pleased nobody. It didn't please action fans. It didn't please comedy fans. It didn't please movie fans. And it didn't please comic book fans because the first rule, now I haven't read the Dredd books, but I'm well aware of the rules of Judge Dredd, which apparently the very good but bomb Carl Urban movie followed this rule. Apparently that movie is fantastic, but it made no money, so it'll never be a sequel. I've heard it's very good. I should give it a shot sometime. But rule one is the judge never takes his helmet. You don't see his eyes. You don't see his face. And so that ain't going to work for Sly Stallone, brother. He's a movie star. So you get like 2 token scenes in the iconic helmet. And the iconic helmet is all over the marketing. It's all the posterings. And then he takes it off. He takes it off, and it barely wears it throughout the movie because he's Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
So I've heard, I don't know what to say about this. This movie is bad. It's boring. It's people know it because it became it did become a famous quote movie for him, but like for people making fun of his performance, I am the law.
Yeah.
I am the law. People aren't quoting it like Hasta la Vista, baby. People are mocking you. This is an ironic people are making fun of you quote.
Yeah. And I don't know what it was like. So other than Batman, right? I mean, they really just did not figure out comic book movies at all until
and here's
later,
the thing,
right?
That you had Superman in 78, Batman in 89. And to a lesser degrees, Batman Returns in 92. And for whatever I like about all of those movies, none of them feel like they're made by people who know comic books. Even the best parts of them. There are things that are off and wrong and different. Even in Superman, the original Superman, I don't think anyone in that movie has read a comic book. And it feels. They get the vibe right enough where it's good. Christopher Reeve is great, but it's good. But there's enough that's like, That's why I'm excited for the James Gunn Superman to Dow. We've talked about the trailer. I'm optimistic. The best comic book movie ever made from 1978 until, I don't know, 2000 something was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1989. Because they hit all the right tones. They took it seriously, but it was family friendly, comedic, action, dark, drama, looked great, acted great. The best movie in the best comic book movie in almost a 30-year period was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
What did you think about Spawn? Did you like?
No, but I also didn't read Spawn, but I didn't,
Okay.
It wasn't for me. I didn't read it, and therefore
I just heard it echoed the tone of the comics very well.
Maybe it did. It wasn't for me. I was never Image comics, the only two Image comics I've ever read, and we won't harp on this, The Walking Dead and Invincible, the two Robert Kirkman books.
No.
Robert Kirkman, who wrote those, great, and obviously his franchises. I've never liked anything Image did before that. They were too 90s edgy for me. Like, we're going to be so cool and different. Wasn't for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, back to Judge Dredd. It sucks. All of that was to say Judge Dredd sucks. So, dialing to his other movie in 1995, Mike, you idiot. Assassins, which I think it's interesting, right? Lower budget, lower box office, still a profit. $50 million budget, $83.3 million box office. And based off the failure of Dredd, I have a hot take, and we can talk plot and other things in a second. You thought about the movie.
No.
I have a hot take that this movie only made the money it did because it came out in the wake of Desperado and Antonio Banderas.
Could be.
That $33 million profit is because of Antonio Banderas and Desperado kicking ass.
I think he's the best part of this movie, to be honest with you.
100%.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it more fun than anything. So I guess at least this year he's gonna he won't earn it with Judge Dredd, but like we can at least sort of say, okay, you were in a halfway
passable
decent
movie.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give him, even though we are giving him the
No, I know.
he doesn't get the credit for this fine enough movie that I don't want to watch. This movie is textbook. Oh, it's on?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm good.
I'm not paying attention to it. I'm on my phone. Yeah, stuff like that.
Exactly.
But it'll be in the background. I'll look up every once in a while. Yeah.
Which is crazy because what a pedigree. It was directed by Richard Donner. Speaking of Superman.
Yeah.
Didn't even mean to make that transition. I think he may have wanted to do a Lethal Weapon-y vibe, but it didn't get there. Just because they have that begrudging respect for each other a little bit. And then it was written by the Wachowskis, who will go on to write The Matrix, although they say that it was heavily, like, what was here is not what they... So we move on to 96 for Stallone, because, again, Arnold didn't have a 95. And we hit Daylight. It was $80 million budget, $160 million worldwide. Again, only $30 million domestically. This is, again, in the U.S., he is not a movie star. His movies are bombing. That said, I like this movie. I revisited this one. It's not great, but I have a soft spot for that 90s disaster movie trope. Like, this movie is Twister's fault. The fact that this movie exists is because of
Dante's
Twister,
Peak.
Dante's Peak, A Little Independence Day. This is because of that. And that's whatever. I don't hate it. It's fine. I would watch it and not be angry. What do you? It's the plot is disaster movie. He is an EMT who got fired because a couple of people died, and it wasn't like entirely his fault. But there's drama, and he gets trapped in an underground tunnel. Is it L.A.? He gets trapped in an underground tunnel. I forget what city it is.
I thought it was New York, but
was it New York? It was New York. Yes, because it's a subway.
Yeah.
LA doesn't have a very good underground system. What am I thinking? So it's New York, and there's going to be like a subway. There's an explosion, and there's cave-ins, and they have to escape the subway, and they're looking for daylight. That's the title. And it's finding survivors and who can get out and what can they do. It's, the Poseidon Adventure, like all these movies are. But this time it's on a subway train. And I don't hate it. Why do you seem less enthused than I did?
And I don't have vitriol for it. I'm just like, I'm uninterested by it. That's really what it is. It's just kind of it doesn't hold my attention that much. That's how I
that's
describe
fair. I have one silly note, there's not a lot to talk about this movie.
Yep.
Two things that I wanted to note is his elder partner that he used to work with when he was an EMT that he talks to at the beginning. Like, I have to get down there. And his partner is played by Dan Hedaya. You
Yep.
would know him if you see him, that guy.
Yep.
He calls him Kid. He's like, Kid, you can't go down there. Kid. Dan Hedaya is 6 years older than Sly Stallone. Now, don't get me wrong. He looks a lot older in the movie than Sly Stallone.
Right.
But Dan Hedaya was born in 1940 and Stallone was born in 46. And this is 1996. I'm like, bro, come, kid, you got to. All right. If you really want that, Burgess Meredith is still alive. He's just made grumpy old men. Get his ass down there and have him do it. Arnold moves into 1996 and he has 2 movies, one of which is a classic, begrudging to me. I have a lot of thoughts on Jingle All the Way.
Yeah.
I don't have Christmas Story level heat on Jingle All the Way, but I am confused by Jingle All the Way. Before I get into budget, before I get into my thoughts, the plot is screwball comedy, better than Stallone did it in 90. Screwball comedy, Stallone has to get a toy for his son that he promised, but he waited too long to buy it. He's competing with other people on Christmas Eve. He fucked up, but he wants to be a good dad. Comedy ensues, etc. Plot out of the way. Genuinely, before I hit my plots of the budget, or my points of the budget, which kind of tie together, talk to me about your feelings on Jingle All the Way. Do you like this movie? What do you think of this movie? What is your place for his hierarchy of movies for you in this? I want your takes before I react genuinely on this.
I'm okay with this movie. It does not bother me, but it is telling that I think much more of the Conan O'Brien goofy Arnold Schwarzenegger bit talking about Jingle All the Way. Much more than I ever think about this. Where it's the face
from the
and
show. I remember
Robert
that too.
Smigels doing the voice. Yeah, like, and he just says, much like my smash it, Jingle All the Way, like over and over and over again. Like, I think of that way more in that term if you say Jingle All the Way than I would ever think about this.
Subconsciously, by the way, I realize now that when I did the Junior joke, I was just stealing the Jingle All the Way joke.
Yeah.
Like, I realize that now that I was stealing that. That's because I remember that too. But
it's hysterical. It's a great bit. But I could watch all of those over and over again just on a rip. I
didn't want you to continue on Conan. I wanted you to continue on Jingle All the Way.
Well, I don't have a lot more else about it where it's it falls into the line of, I looked up the director on this, and the director did Beethoven and Are We There Yet and Flintstones, and it feels like that, right? This is very much meant to be a family comedy,
produced by Chris Columbus, who did Home Alone.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And what was, I read this in the trivia. Didn't he wanted somebody other than Sinbad, right? And then
I'm not sure. I didn't look up a lot of trivia on this one. I was just going to note, while you looked at trivia, there are things we should like about this movie in theory, right? Because it does have a decent enough tone. It's got Curtis Armstrong, Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, as a chain-smoking funny guy. It's got The Big Show, Paul White as a giant fake Santa. It's got Vern Troyer as Mini-Me, Tiny Santa. It's got Rita Wilson. It's got Phil Hartman. Sinbad's not bad. It's got Robert Conrad. Jim Belushi's not great as Mall Santa. It's got Lorraine Newman. It's got Bull from fucking Night Court. On paper, I should like this more than I do, is what I guess I say. But in execution, I'm bored by it. I'm not vitriolic or angry. Like, it's funny, we joke about A Christmas Story, and it crosses over into parody the way we joke about it. But I generally don't like that movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pulling the parody away, we gave it a shot. I wasn't a fan. This one I like a little more, but I'm bored. It just doesn't grab me. And I guess my question that I was going to, after I got your take, I remember this being considered a disappointment at the time, I thought, because it had a $130 million budget. I'm sorry, $130 million box office on a $75 million budget, which isn't great. So I remember people not being in love with it at the time, but has hindsight made this a Christmas classic? Or do I just talk to weird people?
I wouldn't elevate it to classic.
Like, do
Chris
you,
Mc,
and my fear was, did you
no,
consider this a Christmas
nope,
classic? Is why I wanted your take first.
no, not at all. Watched it from time to time, but this isn't one. This isn't in my Elf and those ones that I definitely want to watch around the holidays. Like I turned it on every once in a while, or if it's on, maybe, sure, whatever. The one I did find my one little bit of trivia that Chris Columbus was actually thinking of Joe Pesci for the Sinbad role.
Oh, I would
And
have liked that more, yes.
well, and then I think it was the size difference that was too much. Apparently, Chris Columbus never saw twins, but I think that would have worked better for the back and forth. And then they said, well, a lot of the dialogue was improvised specifically by Sinbad, but then also by Arnold. And I think it's kind of evident because it doesn't always work, right? Like, and so I think in the hands of Pesci, it would have moved a little better. So, and Pesci has a little bit more of the villain. I mean, it's hard to, not that Sinbad's a bad guy, but as an antagonist, right? Because it's all we know about him is the nice guy. So it's just, I don't know if it works as well. And Arnold it's tougher to play off of. Sometimes Arnold works best when he has stuff around him to work with. And if he has to control it, or not control it, if he has to be the spark or whatever, I don't know if he's best served in that role.
And it really bothers me from a Phil Hartman standpoint in this movie that you, as an SNL fan, you saw, and a news radio fan, he has a lot of heart and comedy. They never translated that to the movies. He was, who's the guy that used to be a Sports Center anchor that was an old school? Craig, did the Daily Show. Craig Kilborn.
Yep.
This is a Craig Kilborn role for Phil Hartman in this movie. And that's what I felt like they kept in the brief amount of time he was in movies. He post SNL News Radio, when he tried to do a movie, I feel like they somehow put him in sleazy Craig Kilborn type roles. I never got it. Small Soldiers, Sergeant Bilko, Jingle All the Way, he was a mean douchebag, and I never understood why that became his movie niche. I didn't get it. It's
kind of like that in Greedy too.
Yeah. It's a bummer because he's so much better. And I see this movie and I think of that, and that might just bum me out a little more when I see that. So it's funny the things that can trigger you in a little thing, because that's not about Arnold. That's not about the movie, but it all plays into it. It's as a package. What do you think about the Larry the Cable Guy sequel, Jingle All the Way 2, that came out in 2014?
I have no opinion because I have never seen it and never intend to.
Same.
No, I have an opinion. I bet it sucks. How about that?
Yeah, well, it's not an opinion. That's a thought,
Yeah.
You bet it sucks. That's a thought, not an opinion.
Yeah.
And don't worry, it was produced by WWE Studios and co-starred Santino Marella. But the other movie that Schwarzenegger made in 1996 is Eraser. And I think this is obviously more in his classic Schwarzenegger wheelhouse. He's a U.S. Marshal who protects witnesses. He erases them while they're going to the witness protection program. He'll get you to safety. And it had been so long since I watched this movie, I was convinced it was him and Jennifer Lopez, but no, it's him and Vanessa Williams. I don't know why I thought it was Jennifer Lopez. She was busy making Anaconda this year. And I'll tell you, this movie probably made a lot more money than Anaconda. I'd have to check the budget. This movie is probably better than Anaconda. I'd rather watch Anaconda. This movie's uninspired to me. I don't know. It doesn't do it for me.
Really? When did you have to watch it recently?
No, I watched it a long time ago, and I remember not liking it. I remember not liking it enough where I didn't bother. But please continue. Refresh me as to why I should give it another crack.
It's just back to playing the hits with Arnold. I think this is much more, we're not trying to stretch Arnold here. This is action. I'm going to kill some people and then I'm going to say a bad catchphrase, and I'm in for it. Vanessa Williams is really well cast here. She is, because she's not just the damsel in distress. Like, she's kicking some ass along the way as well. And this is a fun popcorn movie for me. If it's on, I'll check it out because I enjoyed it.
this is something I discovered in my research that and this is my own fault. Well, I can tell you why I didn't revisit this film. Because at the time, whatever I was when I was 13 wasn't for me, and maybe I didn't like it for some dumb reason. I bet I'd love it now. He had such a dramatic fall off, did Arnold, in the early 2000s, like right away, that I conflated it with starting with this. And it didn't start here. This movie made bank. This movie made $143 million. $100 million budget and $243 million box office rounding up. This movie did very well. It was received well enough. Like, critics at this point were on that Arnold whatever movie. Roger Ebert liked it, gave it 3 out of 4 stars. And for some reason, and I didn't have time to revisit it by the time I realized I was wrong about when his downward slide starts. And that's my bad. I didn't seek it out until I realized, oh shit, I should have sought this out.
This also is probably one of the last movies. I don't remember if didn't he have like heart surgery or something around here, or he had something. This seems to be one of the last movies where his physicality and his actual physical nature, like his physique, are notably part of his performance or whatever. Like he looks. If we go forward from here, obviously he's still in an incredible shape for whatever age he is in.
It's never the same. Yeah.
Right. And I think it was because of something. He had surgery and recovery, or he hurt himself or something like that.
It was a heart-related thing. Yeah, I don't remember what it was. We could try to find it. It was definitely
which probably limited what he could do in
yes.
terms of exercising as well, too. So
this is the last film where he looks like Arnold as you remember him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even in his next one that we'll get to.
Yeah.
It's different. This is the last one where he looks like that's Arnold Schwarzenegger as your mind fills it in. It's funny I say it's the last movie where he looks like himself. And that is technically untrue. Because as we move to 1997, by the way, what am I thinking? Point? I assume Arnold gets the point.
Schwarzenegger, yeah. Yep, I agree.
But we move to 1997 for Arnold. And when I say it's the last movie where he looks like himself, it's technically a lie. Because the heart thing didn't happen until after he made Batman and Robin. But he's also in Mr. Freeze makeup for 99.9% of this movie, minus that single scene where he wears a lab coat and smart person glasses, and where they show the pre-accident Mr. Freeze. And what can you say about this movie that hasn't already been said? Bad edition. We've been saying that for so many other movies. What can you say about this movie that hasn't already been said? Same phrase, terrible fucking movie in every account. The movie that killed the superhero movie for almost a decade. That's not true. Blade was already in production. Let me rephrase. The movie that killed DC until, gosh, when did DC put out their next real movie? And the movie that killed Batman until 2005. You had a solid death for a decade of Batman. You already had Blade in production. Marvel took over. But people weren't making superhero movies after this. Because you had Blade, and then you had 2 years from Blade to X-Men, 2 years from X-Men to Spider-Man. Like, people weren't churning out superhero films because of this movie. I saw this movie in the theater. I know I did. And it was actively one of the first movies where I was 14, where I left and thought, I didn't like that. That was bad. And when do you have that moment as a kid where you go to a theater? Because I feel like we've talked about it as a kid. A lot of people, you're a kinder critic as a child, right? Think about, we were talking about movies you would rent that maybe you don't like now or hated. And you thought, well, I thought it was fun. This movie I saw in the theater and it was fucking bad. Randy, tell me your experience while I get some trivia up.
Here's how I would. It's not good.
Well,
obviously,
that's the end. Everybody have a good show. Thank you.
I am weirdly more forgiving of Arnold's performance than anything else in this movie. Is that weird? It's bad. Like
I'm
he's a Batman.
processing.
But he's a Batman villain.
Ah, okay.
Like, hang on. Like, I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying compared to everybody else's performance. So, all right, so everyone else is awful. So it's like we're on a curve here slightly. No one performs well in this movie.
True. Real quick, by the way, I was wrong.
Yeah.
The heart condition had developed, and he had the surgery just before he was cast in this.
Okay.
And he fully recovered before filming. This is the first movie he filmed while this, but you also notice he doesn't do a lot in this movie either.
Yeah.
And also, by the time the next movie comes out that he's in, which is 2 years away, he's lost a lot of weight. And that's when he looks really different. I just wanted to hit the timeline of that.
Okay.
I have a lot to say in retaliation for what you said.
All right.
My favorite part is, first off, the gaps that you could drive a truck through as you pause to think of how to phrase what you were saying made me chuckle. I often edit out a lot of our pauses for the audio, for the benefit of audio people, but I'm going to leave it in this time to let you get the full reasoning of how you tried to phrase what you were trying to say, because now I want to fight you a little bit.
I'm also trying to justify something I'm not sure I believe in retrospect, but continue.
Which is Arnold's not the worst part of this movie, which I will stand by, but he's also very bad. What was what you were trying to...
We'll get to it with Stallone, but go ahead.
Well, now I'm confused what point you were trying to make.
You're gonna disagree with me.
Make the point so I can try to have the discussion.
I'll give it away early. I went back and forth on this. I don't like Copland, and I was gonna give Arnold this year.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a lot to work through.
Yep.
We have a lot to work through. Let's start here. Okay. We've been on a lot. To recap, to set the stage, we are looking at Arnold or Sly 1997.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give the point to Batman and Robin, not Copland. Okay. First, to dial it back and address the Batman stuff. There's a reason this movie, it's because this movie was, bombed.
Tell me how it bombed. It was
Hang
critically...
on, let me rephrase. It critically reviled, and it didn't make, hang on, stand by, I got to get my numbers and my math together. It bombed because of the amount, it was $238 million box office, $160 million budget, which is less than $100 million profit, which for a movie of this size, this scale, what they put into it, what they wanted out of it, is a bomb for this studio. A mild profit is not a hit. Critically, everyone hated it, and as we've already discussed, it killed the franchise for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
What you said about it being a Batman movie and what it set me off, I'm trying to be very measured here. What set me off about it is think about what the Batman movies got reset to become, because that's what people wanted. The difference is if this hadn't been marketed as the natural continuation of the Batman movies we got before. Because even Batman Forever, for its faults, still keeps some of that Tim Burton flair and has a lot of fun moments, and I like a lot of Batman Forever. This, famously, quotes that I have ready to read, is a toy commercial and gets fucked up. But more accurately, I think this movie would have been more well-received if it was just outwardly marketed, not as the next Batman movie, but as a big-budget 1960s Batman movie. This is, if you love the Adam West show, this is the movie for you. This is the big-budget Adam West Batman movie. And cat just ran by and I got distracted while I'm trying to be focused. But as a Batman movie, it's a deeply terrible film. It's cheesy, it's poorly acted, it's gaudy, it's not fun for me to watch as a comic book fan, and as a movie fan, it's a visual diarrhea. They're throwing so much at the screen in colors and framing. The 60s Batman show is fun, kitsch 60s Batman show. Seeing what it's like on a budget, it's unpleasant to look at. Give me the 60s kitsch Batman and I'll enjoy it if that's what I'm actively choosing to watch. When I want to watch my Batman movie coming out of a Tim Burton era of films, I don't want this. I want the Tim Burton style or Tim Burton light that Batman Forever was. This diarrhea on screen is bad in every aspect.
And that's reflective of the movie making, not the matchup that we're doing. I would like you to keep that in praise. I understand you despise this movie. I do not like this movie.
You're telling me then that Stallone is worse in Copland than that. Also, hang on. We, in all of these actor battles, we talk about so much more than the direct actors. And if you're trying to dial in on it only being the actor, it can come down to that. It can come down to that.
And that's what it did for me. So I don't like Copland at all either. So if you can make the argument that it was better received, the box office was not that impressive.
Comparative to the budget?
What? Look at it. How much did it make?
It made less, but on a much less budget. Hang on, I have the numbers right here. Stand by. $15 million budget, $63 million gross. That's a great percentage.
Okay.
And James Mangold's film debut, really amazing cast, doing a lot of good acting. I won't lie, there's a quote that Stallone felt like the film actually hurt his career because he didn't get, suddenly people didn't want him to be working the movies that had been like his bread and butter. And so like he didn't know what to do. People thought that because it didn't make millions of dollars that his career was over. Whatever. It revitalized him creatively. It got him an SNL hosting gig. It's a better movie to me. Technically, it's a better performance to me. I've detailed all my stuff. And by the way, you're right, it's an actor battle. But you did lay out all those points and I had to refute them. You said those points and I refuted those points, just so you're aware. I didn't say that shit cold. You said all of those things. So I told you why I disagree with all of those things. Okay? I didn't just say all of that. That's me saying why I disagree with you on those points. If we have to move on from that, we can now move on from that. And if now is when we focus on the actors, I think he put more in on the craft. I think he put more in on the performance. He took a pay cut to make this movie. He put more into it. His performance, his investment, his final product to me is better. But I will stop now and let you give your rebuttal to what I have said. Lay out why Schwarzenegger is the better performance for this year, the better winner. I will stop now.
This is going to sound really weird. I don't think I have enough to convince you of it, which is fine. This is more my disdain for Copland, that I didn't like that movie. And
no,
just
there's not liking and there's disdain. Those are two different things. Why is it disdain? That's a big word.
Just I didn't get I heard about all the hype about it and all the performance, and then I saw it and was really uninspired by it. I was surprised. I was surprised with the cast that was involved with it, and it turned out to be kind of a movie that I didn't care about.
I will note this.
Maybe not disdain.
I
but
don't
very
love
below,
it. I rewatched. Yeah, it's fair. I rewatched. I don't need to watch it again. I don't love this movie. I don't think it's the best thing ever. But if we're talking this battle, I have trouble here because of this battle. It's not a great movie. You're right. For the pedigree, it could have been better, should have been better. To me, the most memorable thing is when Jim Breuer came out as fake Joe Pesci on SNL and confronted Stallone as to why he wasn't in the movie when Ray Liotta and De Niro are. And he's like, well, you can't call me. You can't call me, you motherfucker. Because remember, in 96, 97, Breuer had a huge Joe Pesci show. Big deal.
Joe Pesci show, yeah.
Big deal, the Joe Pesci show impression.
Yep.
So we are, just to sum up, and by the way, the measured stuff I did before, I can totally understand and set aside that has nothing to do with this, and I will. But I do want to say I only led into what I did because you did start with it before we got to the performances. So, so, but we'll set all that aside and we'll talk about the actors. We are at an impasse where I say Schwarzenegger's performance was too cheesy and bad versus a good performance, and you say a performance was too underwhelming and not worth it versus someone trying, is what you're giving me, right?
I also think that I for some reason I had in my head Batman and Robin make more money than it did. I'm not just like folding here, but I feel like my stance based on that. I thought it like doubled its budget.
Okay.
I did not realize it didn't make as much. I must have just misread the numbers.
It did
So
real
I think
bad in comparison, all
I
joking
think I was
aside.
being
Yeah.
well. I mean, but you think about it. If I read that as 360 million,
Oh,
you know,
that's
it's a
a
different
different thing.
story.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So I think that is. So I can admit my faults and my misreadings. So, but I think that was what was buoying what I thought, and also the fact that I remembered, and maybe it's just because when I saw it, I remembered it. Like you said, you're a kinder critic when you're younger, so I recognize it as not great, but maybe that I enjoyed Arnold's point of it. So, but I think ultimately you're right, and we have to give it to Stallone. But I don't like
I'm
either of them.
I will note that I'm not. This is why I'm trying to be calm and measured. I know I can get loud and goofy and do a bit. I have been trying to make sure I don't do that right now because I'm not trying to bully you into this pick.
Sure. You-
Legitimately.
okay,
I want to make sure if we do it on this one, because this is the first, I think, real argument we have on this one, even through the 80s. Listen, we both think we're right. I have my reasons, you have your reasons. I want to make sure if you do say give it to Slide that we're not, I didn't push you into it so hard because I was a dick.
no, but you confirmed a number that I thought was different. So I
Okay.
think that's and as close as this was at that point, based on my not really liking either, I think that's enough to push it to the other way. So I'm okay with it.
So the sum up for me, the way I'll take it is obviously numbers wise wildly different, but budget percentage, small budget versus gross, bigger budget versus gross, both kind of not great. One worse than the other for us personally. What does push it over the edge here is the acclaim one person got in the media with the critics. How it was received more nationally is helping to push that over. Just to help get that over the hump as to why we're going
Right.
to Stallone.
I disagree with that acclaim, but yes, the acclaim was there. That's fair.
Yes. Okay. So,
Okay.
what does the score make that with that point for Stallone?
So we're 4 to 4.
4 to 4.
Mhm.
And if I am
And we know
correct,
how we know how it's going to end. So because
does one movie one
they
not
both
make
go
one?
unopposed in the next 2 years. So
How are we gonna figure out a tiebreak? We'll get there. We'll get there. So moving over to 98 for Stallone. Randy hit me with the titles because I closed my window again.
Ants.
Ants. Oh God. Okay. All right. So interesting thing on Ants. This was the summer of bug movies. This was A Bug's Life versus Ants. And Bug's Life on a budget, again, we'll go high end, $120 million budget, $363 million gross.
And a good movie.
Yes, yes, it is. $105 million budget if we go high end for Ants, $172 million worldwide gross.
And
Tiny
not a
little,
good movie.
No, tiny little profit. Not great. However, weirdly enough, Siskel and Ebert liked this one, as I recall. Or at least, no,
No.
Siskel said he liked it better than A Bug's Life. Isn't that crazy? Also, this movie has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. 92% on Rotten Tomatoes is Ants. I'm stunned.
Really?
Critics liked this movie. Thank goodness audiences did not. So
Yeah, this
it's
was
a
another.
Woody. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a Woody Allen movie, but it's ants, and Sly plays like his best friend. He's
Well, and it's
playing himself as an ant.
It's the typical DreamWorks formula too, where it's like, let's get all these famous people to voice stuff, and Pixar always got it right, where they were like, let's find the best voice actor. If they happen to be an actor that's famous, great, but the best voice for the character.
They still did this after Shrek, but pre-Shrek, all DreamWorks did was generic plot, famous people. It was bad. I don't have a lot else to say about it, other than there was the reason I mentioned the high end of the budget. There is some disparity there. DreamWorks tried to say it was a $42 million budget. Some other producers came out and said it was a $60 million budget. Other people came out and said it was a $105 million budget. And they're all saying this with the $172 million $172 million worldwide gross.
Yeah.
If you say it's a $42 million budget, boy, you made a lot of money. If you say it's 105, you did. A lot of people are confused by them trying to claim otherwise because this is 1998 era computer animation, and computer animated films cost twice the amount they're claiming at the time. And the budget didn't include a lot of those costs.
Maybe farmed out to the animation studios too.
Right.
Maybe that's part of it.
So somebody's trying to cook the books.
Yeah.
It made a small budget or a small profit, probably, but we don't have a real number here. That's it for Stallone in 98, right? Is that a default point?
Yeah, that's the only one. And he was a fairly major character in the movie, so it's not just like he showed up. Yeah, exactly.
He put a lot in. He had, if not an arc, I think he rescued the main character once. Was a couple of things. One good little thing.
There you go.
Yep. So is it 5-4? 5-4.
Sly, yeah.
Okay, so but 99, End of Days, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is where we're talking about. If you look at the poster of this, he looks a lot skinnier on the poster.
Yep.
And this is the other one this is the one I don't remember very well at all. I remember this one less than Eraser. I know it's something to do with like the devil and the occult. And he's a cop who I think has to protect somebody. And somehow Gabriel Byrne's involved with Satan. But this isn't Stigmata where that also happens. So it's, that said, $100 million budget, $212 million gross. Again, I, in some reason, was thinking he'd fallen off by the 90s. This movie made bank. People wanted to see this. He hadn't made a movie since Batman and Robin, and people wanted it, which is crazy. I was convinced this movie was going to be a bomb when I looked it up. And because it's also a default point and we haven't seen it, really what to say. I think you end the 90s on a tie, which I hate. Sly did technically win the 2-decade battle. He won the 80s. Sly wins. Barely.
Wow.
And the thing is you can't dive into the 2000s. Maybe we do sometime for us another time. We've yet to do a third decade for some actors. This might be the first time where I think it could be warranted to dive into the third decade. But maybe we table that for another time. Because there's a lot less for both of them. It would go quick.
I'm looking at it. Out of curiosity too.
Do you have Sly? Because I have Arnold open. If you open Sly, I'll open Arnold.
I have Sly open one.
Because you got to think, after 2003, Arnold became governor, and he didn't act from 2003 to 2010.
5, 6 movies for. And then, of course, culminating with in the 2010s, them being together in Expendables.
And also, I never saw that Jailbreak movie or whatever they did that they put out. I never saw that one. You know what I'm talking about? Because the Expendables was all cameos practically, and like co-stars and fitting in a million other people. In 2014,
Escape Plan, right? Isn't that what it was called?
Yeah, when did that come out?
13.
I never saw that, and now I feel like I should. So it feels very direct to video by all accounts. But
fan service.
It's funny is I didn't want to do this. I wanted Arnold to win this decade and us find a tiebreaker, because I think a tiebreaker will give to Arnold. Sly wins for longevity and already being famous in the early 80s. Arnold made better movies. Arnold made more consistent movies. Everything Arnold loved per capita versus Stallone, I liked more. Sly wins, in quotes. Arnold was better. Do you disagree?
I think that's right. Yeah, and more, well, I don't know. It's in the 80s, maybe it's different, but it just felt like Arnold's highest were higher than Stallone's highest.
100%.
But maybe not from but it feels like that, but from a box office standpoint, I don't know if it's reflective, right? So
you had,
because Rambo and Rocky, remember those things?
You had about $650 million in 1 year for 85. You had $550 for
maybe
Terminator
Arnold's
2.
high point. Arnold could do more high points, maybe, because you go.
Arnold acted less at his high point than Stallone acted too. So he was taking
Right.
less
Well, and
swings and doing less
he
stuff.
didn't just go right. He didn't just go back to the two franchise. You know,
Yeah.
that's essentially like Stallone's high points were the two franchises that he
And everything else he did,
kept doing.
he had a
Yeah.
couple moments where like, well, that wasn't too bad, or I didn't
He
hate
didn't
that.
have it. He didn't have a True Lies. Like that's
No.
that. Yeah.
So it's a shame, and I'm sorry that our last real discussion here ended with Copland.
Yeah.
That we didn't have a real talk. I forgot it was 2 default points in 98, 99. I
Yeah.
hate that the decade really for us ended with that. Come back to me, baby. I
Verbal
love
sparring.
you. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt you, baby. Come back to me. So
just
no, I won't
cue,
do it again.
cue the foot stomping on me. So it's
Oh, I won't do that. Mainly because I don't want to edit it again. That's exhausting.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. But that's really it.
Yeah.
Anything? I think we summed it up. We can get out of here unless you have any final thoughts.
We've covered quite a bit.
All right. Well, unless there was a stay of execution, TikTok's dead by the time this comes out. What a bummer. So we'll go back to our social media plugs. It's really disappointing. If you're watching on video, I really got to edit that TikTok logo off for next week. It's so depressing. But you can still find me, begrudgingly only, at Mike Barcode, MikeAEBARCODE on Instagram. You can find What Are These Guys Friends on Instagram. We have whatarethesguysfriends@gmail.com. Hit us up. Talk to us about stuff. If you loved or hated Copland, I'd actually love to hear it. Either way, I'd love to hear takes. That was such an interesting... I didn't see that discussion coming. Even if you didn't love it, I didn't see it going that way.
This is my Chalamet as Beast stuff coming back
different.
to me. So.
This one is... honestly, like, we've done the plugs. We'll wrap it up. We'll say goodbye in a second. The difference to me on that one is that felt funny, gimmick, goofy, bad take. This one, you had some real meat behind, and I can get it. I just disagree with it, and I don't know how to find that middle ground better. Chalamet was just a bad take. So, but we'll wrap it up. Don't worry, Randy. I'll give you the last word.
On that note, goodbye, everybody.